Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 284. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Segulant, and the Duke of you know. On this episode, we take a look at Justice League number 3, DC Universe Presents number 3 featuring Deadman, and Legion of Superheroes number 3. We also have a bunch of listener voicemails as we continue our listener voicemail catch-up. We're actually all caught up as of this episode, except for a few new ones that have come in as of the time that I'm editing it together. So I just want to let everyone know that we're all caught up. We will be airing any new voicemails that we've just received next week on our next show. So I want to thank everyone for their patience on that. I want to remind everyone that our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of the show, so keep calling in. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, be sure to check out Huntress number 4 of 6. The Huntress one-woman war on the Italian mob takes a dark turn when she discovers just how high up the corruption goes. Is our heroine willing to take things to the next level and actually kill an opponent? Regularly $2.99, 40% off only $1.79. And I wanted to shout this out because we've been talking a lot about the monthly series of the New 52, but there's been a lot of great mini-series that have been coming out, and Huntress is one of many of them. And if you're missing this one, it's a great opportunity to get to know this character in the New 52. Over at InStockTrades.com, be sure to check out DC Comics Presents The Life Story of the Flash number 1. And actually, the reason why I picked this, they're doing a bunch of sales right now. Depending on when you listen to this, they have a Cyber Monday sale going on, which this actually is a part of. This is $7.99 regularly, 42% off, only $4.63. This was a great book because during the time that Mark Waid and Brian Augustyn were writing The Flash, there was this going story with Iris West where she was coming to the present from the future. And she had written down in this book that she had written, The Life Story of the Flash, which had many secrets that Wally was not aware of about his own life. Well, this was actually released as like a bonus hardcover from DC, and now they've recollected it in this very affordable volume, only $4.63. This is one of many deals that are 42% off. They've got everything, and that's not just DC. It's the entire comic line at 42% off. But there's many things at clearance anywhere from 50 to 80% off over at InStockTrades.com. And orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, so be sure to check out their website. Remember, with both InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com, if you're shopping there digitally, they get credit for it. Plus, they also have a deal at DCBService.com where you get 5% off your order based on how much you're ordering digitally. So it's a great opportunity to save even more money from these wonderful sponsors of our show. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support Raging Bullets. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Jim, our next review, we're going to do a follow-up with Justice League, looking at issue number 3. The writer is Jeff Johns, penciler Jim Lee, inker Scott Williams, colorists Alex Sinclair with Hi-Fi, and Gabe, it's Eltaeb, Pat Brousseau on letters, Jim Lee and Scott Williams with Alex Sinclair on the cover, Greg Capello and Jonathan Glapian with FCO Placina, it's PLASCENCIA, variant cover. It's the creative team from Batman. That's over there. So it's definitely FCO. I don't know how I screwed that up last episode. Darren Shan, assistant editor. Brian Cunningham, editor. And again, I want to apologize to FCO for last episode. I butchered that so badly. But Justice League, I want to, we're making sure we go through all the New 52 and hitting all the books. But periodically it's fun to go back to a title. We did this with Action Comics already. We're doing it now with Justice League. There's a lot of titles I want to go back and take a look at because of where they've gone. And we got to start with the flagship title because now we got Wonder Woman in the mix. This is the first issue where we've seen Wonder Woman spotlighted with this team. It's kind of a look at her past as well. I really liked her appearance in this. I thought it was a great show of how much of Wonder Woman's past is still in place, even though we've seen some changes in her own book. It's nice to see that the foundation of what I consider to be Wonder Woman is intact. And these are core values, I think, that work for this character. What do you think about Justice League, the gradual introductions of the character? Do you think this is a good way for them to have gone about it, instead of dropping the whole team on us at once?
Oh, definitely a good way to go, and I'm really enjoying it. This is, we're laying down the first appearances and or early appearances of these heroes. So it's a great thing for someone starting off, and as well as someone who's been, here before. And I'm enjoying the story I'm getting. There's a lot of moments where I'm laughing hysterically. There's times when I'm like hoorahing for some cool battle sequences, and then I'm seeing the characters that I know and love, and their qualities come out. This is a great portrayal of each one. It gives them enough time for a person to actually get into it. And all the time, we're laying this groundwork for this great Darkseid story. I'm really digging this, and I'm loving the fact that she still has, obviously she still has her connection to Zeus and the Greek gods, but there's people reacting to that. There's with the whole, when you're looking on the TV monitors, you're seeing all the pagan comments and all the people who are all the religious, extreme people who are like, oh, she's going to burn in hell because she's worships Greek gods. Well, guess what? That's her religion. That's where she's going from. And I love seeing just that different side of it. I personally don't ever remember reading a Wonder Woman story where people were upset with her because of her religious beliefs. I think that's just a great that's a great angle they're going with.
Well, and that is something nowadays that's very popular, that people are singled out for a variety of different reasons, including, as you mentioned, religious beliefs. It seems with our media nowadays, we know so much about people's backgrounds that they'll often target one small portion of who they are. And Diana's religion, while it's a foundation piece of her, I don't think it's a full view of what Wonder Woman is all about. I don't think people yet have gotten to know Wonder Woman in this society. And the hero that she can be, that it's not really just about her being a fighter, because even Steve Trevor at this point she's looking for a fight, niching for a fight. There's more to it than that. I don't think Diana knows fully who she is yet either.
Well, she's, just on the beginning of her hero-ness and her heroine, or whatever, however you refer to it. She's just at the beginning stages of it. And I like seeing the fact that, where she came from did have such an influence that she doesn't know just the general everyday stuff like ice cream, or just the general concept of paying for things. Because she goes and she gets a free cone plus gets one for the kid by pointing a sword at the guy. And then she compliments him saying, oh, you're wonderful at this. Compliments don't pay the bills. But that guy's like, hey, take it. Just don't cut off my arm. And I liked seeing that, just that reaction, that no one knows they can trust her. They see her as the person who's slicing off heads and skewing things. Granted, in her mind, she's taking out evil and she's taking out the bad guys. So it's not like she's doing anything wrong, but people can't distinguish that. All they see is just the actions. They just see the violence, and they're reacting to that. I love seeing that.
Here's the funny thing, and I think it's very true of our society. Do you think Diana would be having these problems where people would be going after her religion if it wasn't so popular to hate superheroes in the society? Like, it does fit what I think is a big problem with today's society. People look for reasons to justify hatred. And in this case, I think, the whole pagans got no soul thing that's on the screens is indicative of kind of like our society of when, people want to single things out to just tear apart. That's the thing with her that they could find to hit her with, besides being a superhero.
Well, I definitely think people would go after her without, I think religion is one of the catalysts that cause a lot of debate, hatred, and anger. And it's, it has been throughout history that wars have been started over it, and just people have looked for a reason to hate somebody. Well, it's because they're so-and-so. It's because of this. It's, so I think religion, even if the world didn't hate superheroes, I think she would have some issues with it.
No.
Now,
I disagree. Here's what you'd be having. If she was popular, you'd have the reverse, where people would be screaming about religious tolerance, and you'd be having protests pro-religious tolerance basis on her popularity. I think because it's popular to hate her, and I do think that's true in our society, because we do have rallies for things like that. In the case of when it's popular to do that. We're very driven by media popularity. And in her case, she's unpopular because she's part of the quote-unquote superheroes in this world. I think in our world, if the superheroes were popular and it was on the flip side, you would be seeing her being applauded for being a champion of religious tolerance. I think that we cater that way. I don't think it'd be across the board 100%, but I do think it would be more likely. That's how driven by our media we are. I mean, if you disagree, go ahead.
Well, if superheroes were popular, we would still have the same backlash. There would still be that same thing, but there would be other people fighting on her side. Take a look when the president, Obama, was running for office. Just because of his name, just because of that, people were saying, oh, he must be a Muslim. And all the supporters were like, what are you talking about? He's not a Muslim. That's ridiculous. Or look at his name. It's not about his name. It's about his character. And so you would still have those hatred. You would still have those people throwing out there. But she would have on her side the people fighting for her. Some saying that, hey, she's religious tolerance. Hey, we can't. This is America. We can't, go against her just because of her religious beliefs. So if the heroes were popular, she would have her defenders, but there still would be that hatred. There still would be that anger, and it still would be on the new media because controversy, conflict, all of that is wonderful ratings. So the media would want it. So we would still be seeing it, but with those clips of the people with the pagan signs, with the Ghostbuster through it, you would have people, saying tolerance and Wonder Woman. You would have the champions right there.
That's what I mean. You're not seeing any of that. If you look anywhere, there's nobody defending her in this group. There is no rally cry on, there is no, when you were using the Obama example, there, he had his supporters who were on the other side of the fence. We're not getting any of that defending Diana here. There are no Diana supporters in this group, clearly. But you're right. That would be the way it would be. And I agree with you. There would still be some of that. I love Steve Trevor being back in this. And the way that they're using him, they've modernized him, but he's at his core who he was. He's the liaison for Wonder Woman. And he's really trying to troubleshoot. And I love that it's not about protecting her. It's about protecting other people from her. And really, in many ways, protecting her media persona as well, which is something that he has to consider that you didn't have to before. And I love Mr. Orr being in this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because background stuff, like with Orr being there, but also some of the note, I keep seeing 52 throughout this thing constantly. On the media channels, it was Action 52. On some guy's shirt, he's wearing a jersey, and it's the number of the jersey's 52. So that kind of had me chuckling as well. Just the little background sequences that when you look and just, it's again, third, fourth read through that I notice these things, but I'm glad their little Easter eggs are out there.
I love her new costume. I'm going to say it again. I mean, this, I've seen it in her book. I love it there. I'm liking it here. As we've said before, the pant versus no pants debate is neither here nor there for me. I really do love the coloring of this and the styling. It's working for me. And the whole ice cream sequence for me was an absolute riot because this is a stranger in a strange land. And I always liked that concept of Diana's introduction. This is the nice part about this series taking place in the past versus her current title. You're getting an opportunity to see her first steps in this world and what that's like for her. This ice cream, you should be applauded for this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the accolades. How about a couple bucks?
Yeah. Well, does she understand money?
I'm going to guess no, because on Paradise Island, you didn't pay for anything. The cook did the cooking. The seamstress did the sewing. If that was your calling, if that was your task, if that was your duty, you did it, and everyone appreciated it. So her giving the guy praise, saying, "Hey, this is wonderful," is what she would have done on the home, back on, on the island, because you'd say, "Hey, good job with this. This is awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I slaved hard on it. Yeah, all right." And it's just that kind of dialogue back and forth that you would have. Whereas here we are materialistic. We are. They're not even materialistic. The guy is entitled to get paid for what he's doing, but he's willing to let it go because he doesn't want to have his arm chopped off.
He's not really very willing to let it go. It's just, I've got no choice there. I love that she was helping the little girl, though, and, I love how the kid, seeing her through the eyes of a child. I think there's something about the trusting values of a child, kind of seeing her for what she is. She's not coming across as this person trying to attack and kill everybody. She's walking around with a sense of wonder. And the kid recognizes that, that there's nothing to be fearful. She sees the coolness of a superhero. I love the kid's reaction. First reaction, cool. I mean, there was something neat about that. And I just like this whole presentation. It's a couple pages, but this is a book that benefits from being oversized, in that they can deliver a little bit more content. You're introducing a lot of characters, and you want to be able to show that presentation. And when Steve Trevor tries to get her back, safe and sound and out of the public eye, that's when the parademons show up. The parademons in this, to me, are just very well handled. It's sheer numbers. They look creepy. The whole boom tube where you see just hundreds of them swooping out there. And Diana's sense of excitement. This is something I'm digging about The Flash, too. It's fun to be a hero. A lot of times, you want that sense of disbelief. I know you and I have talked on the show about how, I don't know if I'd want to be a hero. It's a hard life and all that. But then there's heroes like this and moments like this that make you go, well, that would be kind of cool. Yeah. And I want that. Take me to that zone where it makes me forget the downside and remember the good side. I think in our own jobs, we all do our jobs for a reason. There was something that drew us to what we do. And there's good days on our jobs because of those moments where you get this Wonder Woman moment, hopefully at your job. And this is something that I think comic books are really good at reminding us of. No matter how downtrodden these heroes get and how bad the situation can be, there's this sense of shing as you get there. And I loved that. There was something it was like a high five moment. One little panel that just really just got me. But it is a fight. Excellent. Leave them to me. This is like what she was looking for all along. And I really liked this.
And it's one of those cool Wonder Woman moments. Now, I've always been a fan of the warrior diplomat, the Diana that we saw near the end of the run that could actually solve a problem without fighting. But I gotta say, just seeing her like this, the pure hoorah whoop-ass moments, I hooped and hollered. And I really enjoyed seeing that. The combat sequences throughout this, when she's with the group, when we see Superman unloading on these guys, those were just some fun moments for me. And it's one of the reasons that this is a book that I am so glad that I'm getting and I'm reading. And we talk about our top 10, we talk about our top 5 list. This book is in my top 5. Just the sense of fun, the sense of adventure, everything that I'm getting out of this is just, it's a pure pleasure to read the book. And when you sit there and, you're going through, you're having fun with it, you're seeing stories play out, you're seeing really cool looking art sequences, this is just firing on all cylinders.
Well, and one of the great things about this is one I would not hesitate to hand to anybody who is saying, hey, what's this DC thing all about? This is a great book to hand to people and just say, this is an overview. And this is really a jumping off book as well, where you can, any of these characters who are in here, you can jump off into their worlds from this title. Batman's very well presented here. Superman is. Green Lantern is. It looks like Aquaman's going to get, obviously, you get the writer of Aquaman writing this. Wonder Woman. You can jump off from any of these characters into their own titles. I love what's going on with Vic Stone. The horror of seeing, in the middle of this big event, a dad who hasn't been there for him. In the moment of his son's quote-unquote death, what looks like going to be he's at death's door. Now he's realizing what's important to him. I don't see a dad looking at his son as an experiment here. I look at a dad realizing the mistakes that he's made and realizing that he can do something about it. Whether or not this is the right thing to do is going to remain to be seen. But and how Vic's going to feel about dad doing this. Is this something that Vic's going to be okay with? I don't know. Because you're giving up an awful lot. I mean, especially with how horrific things are for Vic. Is he going to run into a situation where Vic doesn't want to be alive after going through this? I don't know.
And again, that's another cool thing where we got to see Vic's life before this. Yeah. And there was a couple, it was just, in the first 2 issues where we got a kind of a glimpse of who he was. He's, the high school superstar, the star athlete. He had a pretty solid life going with a pretty solid future. And then everything changes. And then add on top of it, not only does he almost die, but he's going to become cyborg. And we're going to see that kind of play out. And I'm agreeing with you. I don't think Vic's going to be too happy about what he did. And I don't know if he will see that his father was, just being desperate to save him, or if he'll just see his father using him as an experiment tool. I don't know if Vic will see it that way, because he's been disappointed on so many occasions. And I'm hoping that's a story that gets played out here, that we get to see kind of an idea or glimmer into that.
Because we've seen that before with Vic. I mean, it is storytelling that's been told before. I'd like to see it told in this world because it's something that I find that's interesting. Are you in agreement with me, though, that Dad, like here, I really do feel Dad's doing this for the right I mean, I don't know if it's the right reason, but he's doing it because it's not because he's an experiment, because of the fact that he's trying to save his kid. Yeah,
I'm 100% in agreement on that one. And in the past, I've read stories and just seen some of the dealings I've dealt with. I always felt that the dad did use him as experiment in the past. And that's why here I like seeing that it's not, Dad monkeying with him experiment. It's actually Dad, a desperate father trying to save his son. And he's like, you see Moreau is sitting there saying, hey, this isn't tested yet. He's like, I don't care. We're going for it. Because this is his son's only hope. And I like seeing that. I like seeing that desperation and just a lot of high emotion, high raw energy just going on. And I also kind of dig Cyborg's connection to, with Darkseid and their tech. Maybe that actually will be one of the reasons why Cyborg's part of the Justice League team, why he's actually being brought into this, even though he's a brand new hero, has no idea probably what he can do and what he can't do, but because of this connection he's going to have with Darkseid is going to make him a vital piece of the puzzle. And I'm actually I like seeing that.
I love the artwork with Vic there with his dad, because the sequence of events with Dad going, I already saw his mother die. I refuse to watch him die too. Very pivotal moment. But I also love when you look at Vic, you actually see transparently through his cheekbone and jawbone. You can see the remaining teeth there. I mean, it's a very well done visually. Just seeing what that would look like. It adds a horror aspect to what's happening to that side of his face. That is something that I think is really important, because what goes on with Vic is horrifying. Mm-hmm. This is not. Where there's other heroes where you're like, wow, that'd be cool to have those powers. It's something like in Blue Beetle. We talked about Blue Beetle on the last episode. It's something I really liked about that character, too. There was a horrifying aspect to it. It's worse for Vic, though. Actually, Jaime's thing, at least that can go back into his back. And aside from, going to a swimming pool, he's got to be a little careful. He can live a pretty normal life. What Vic goes through, his life is completely changed and altered in this moment, and he was the jock. He had it all going on.
Yeah, and it's talk about a painful transformation. It's no pain, no gain. Kind of gets thrown completely out the window with this one, because we're talking burning flesh, and I love seeing the look of horror. That it's funny to say I love seeing someone suffer. I'm not really glad that he's suffering, but it's just a really cool portrayal of everything, of this whole sequencing going through. And even as the experiment starting, you figure, okay, maybe this will help him. No, it's going to add some more pain to it. So let's kick it up to 11 now. You thought you were in pain before. Guess what? You're not done yet. And I was just like, oh, poor guy. I feel really bad for him.
The superhumans are at the cause of this. We see the parademons taking people away, and they're being lumped in together. But it's funny, when I'm looking at the Justice League, really, aside from the fact that some of them become friends or associates along the way through missions, these are heroes who they don't have that connection. Their powers haven't come from the same sources. Batman doesn't even have powers. It's just because of this circumstance, there's a reason for these heroes to be together. They know of each other, but Flash and Green Lantern, they both thought Batman had superpowers. Yeah. So, they obviously didn't know him very well at all. They knew each other through a couple missions. And I love that, the Brave and the Bold team of the Flash and the Green Lantern would know each other, and there's a familiarity there. But Batman learning about Hal's constructs and the fact that, when he's not concentrating and Hal not willing to let that go. I am not showing any weakness in front of this guy. That's that ego we saw from Hal in that sequence, which is something that fits a younger Hal. And I don't know if it's so much ego as much as this need to prove himself in front of them. That'll be kind of the flyboy thing that's on there as well. It does remind us that it's a young Hal. I got to tell you one thing, though. The MVP in this issue, as much as I love Diana, I love that I'm saying this. Superman. That sequence with him and all those parademons, and the truck and what he was doing there, he looked like Superman. And I love how the rest of them had to look in awe of Superman. So often that's something that's lost, but I think that's something that's at the core really important from Superman. This is just who he is. This is what Superman does. And in this moment, we see Superman being himself, recognizing that he just needs to do this thing. He's really not like worried about himself getting hurt or anything like that. He's worried about doing the right thing and getting the situation. That's it. Smile for me. Just such a cool Superman moment. This suit is so growing on me. It's a suit that I detested before, and I don't know what it is. I think it's just the more I'm getting used to the storyline, whatever, I really like the suit now, which I didn't think I was going to say.
I tell you, man, I am so happy to hear that because, I was sitting here I love these sequences. You see him doing what nobody can do. And then I love the fact that leading up to this, we had the moment where Bruce is like, okay, we need to regroup. We can't just barrel. There's too many of them. We can't just barrel through them. Tell that to Superman. And then you flip screen, he's using a truck as a bat, and he's just batting them around. And the neat thing I like is you see him pulling away from the people. You do see him trying to save people, but it's really Bruce who notices that the parademons aren't here to kill people, they're here to snatch people up. And it's, again, every one of them have their niche, have their powers, have their specialty. Bruce is sitting there the entire time. Yeah, he's throwing down, yeah, he's beating up some parademons, but he's studying the situation. Same thing, where he saw with Hal's, constructs are breaking down because he wasn't focusing. He sees that they're not taking people, they're running away. I love seeing just the strategist playing out. You got the power, you got the muscle, you got some fun, some glory going on. You got some really great elements of a team here. This is, we talked about that the last Justice League run, saying, man, that was a really cool run. And I still stick by that. I thought it was a great run. I was looking forward to what it could have come out with. But seeing these heroes together really has me happy. This is, the quote-unquote, dream team. And I'm enjoying this. I'm loving it, play out.
It was one of those things. Remember even back when it was rumored that this run was going to happen. We didn't know that it was going to be to this scale, where the whole universe was changing. But even back then, I wanted to see this book. I didn't want to see it necessarily in place of that book. Like, I was loving what Robinson was doing over there. I liked the team he was putting together. And the great part about the way that team was crafted was you could still do this.
Yeah.
Because none of those characters are on this team. So it was kind of cool to see that you could have done that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm loving what they're doing with the New 52. This team is perfect because we're seeing the ground floor creation of the Justice League here. And I love that. I like that whole ground floor thing. And it is, what it is? I'm really convinced now what's really turning me around on the Superman suit is that Krypton issue of Action Comics. We got to see that this is part of the history and the culture of Krypton. Yeah. I think it's making it such a story element to the whole thing, which they've been saying all along there's a story element to this suit. We haven't fully seen how it was crafted yet, but, from Action Comics #3, we really know, where this is all coming from. It's cool.
Now, I'm trying to figure out which entrance of the heroes I enjoyed the most. Now, you start looking at every time a new hero pops up, joins the team, which one has the coolest entry. Right now, Diana kind of has it for me, because that was just a great entry moment. It's like demons, back to Hades. 2-page spread of her coming in, kicking, swinging, lasso going, pure on, just full multiple pages of action sequence. I thought that was a really cool entry. This right here is a poster that I would love to have.
I think, what you're touching on here I think one of the things that's working about all those entrances and why you're maybe having trouble choosing between your favorite would have to be because I think the way that each one of their entrances has been crafted, it spotlights and fits that particular hero. This, and I think that it's because it's not too busy. They're taking a hero at a time and spotlighting them in the storyline in a way that fits versus like trying to get all of them into one issue. I think this introduction, the way that they've done it, has been absolutely perfect because of that. Thematically, we got to see that great build from Diana prior to this moment. And then that moment where she jumps through, we've already seen things that the rest of the heroes haven't from her. You know what I mean? And I think that moment just had a meaning. We knew who it was when that hit. It was great to see her. It totally fit what we expect from Diana. I don't know, there's something I just really, really dug about that whole thing.
That and the cool moment of Flash and Green Lantern. Dibs.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud and I still chuckle when I read it just because it's so because Hal, the young Hal Jordan, the hotshot pilot, the Mr. I don't want to say Mr. Attitude, but he does have one, and it's he's got the strut. And when you do what he does, you kind of need to have that strut. You need to have that confidence. You need to have that machismo. And the fact that it was they're in the middle of this fight, he's like dibs. I love that. That just so fit him, so fit. Just again, the fun I'm having with this title.
Well, that's what it is, fun. That's for so long that's become a diminished word. And I really think we need to bring that word back as being the forefront of what makes great comics. It's what makes great television, what makes great film. Fun. If something's not fun, that makes it rewatchability. I've reread this issue multiple times. And the reason why is it was fun. It's a fun book. And I do find that that's the reason why I reread most of my comics that I reread. It's because they were fun. The New 52 has a load of fun in it. This is definitely one of those books, though, that it's just fun to reread it. We glossed over this part, and I want to jump back to it real quick. When they go into that secret room, because the security's offline, and we get to see more of just how vast the damage is to Vic, because it's getting worse. Everything that Dad's doing, Dad's really stuck on time. And it's not just one side of Vic, it's both sides. Because Dad's clutching, in that moment, right arm, when it was before it looked like it was just the left side. So the situation seems to be getting progressively worse.
Yeah, well, his body is, dissolving from the inside out and outside in. And you can kind of see he has no legs now when he's laying on the table. And, it just, things are really, He's rapidly dying and deteriorating right in front of him, which also adds to the father's shock, the father's desperation. So it really does play out well to why the dad's willing to take this risk with this experimental stuff that's never been confirmed yet. He's watching his son painfully deteriorate in front of him, and he's got to do something now. And it adds to everything, and just the coloration on all these sequences have been wonderful. We've had brighter sequences through some of the battle. We have this more heavy focus on the red in these labs, kind of a little bit more of they've lost power there. They're on their backup generator kind of feel. Adds to the whole desperation of it. Just that that shock and awe. It's really neat thing with because talking about the story, talking about the artwork, coloration as well. Just got to give full praise, and ink as well. This is just a title that is absolutely beautiful to me.
What happens? Where do you think these nanites have been recovered from? Did we know that? Is that something that's been established? Because Morrow gets cut off there.
Yeah.
Those haven't been tested. We recovered them from, and he goes, do it, before we get the opportunity. So do we know? Has that been? I don't think it's been established.
I was going to reread the first two issues. I wanted to see if they mention anything about the nanites, but I thought it was recovered from the same Darkseid stuff. That's why he has that. Why Vic does have this connection with Darkseid. That it came from either the parademons or maybe from the mother box that they found.
Oh yeah.
That was my thought on it, and I was going to reread, see if I got any confirmation on it. But that's how I was taking it, because that's how I took he has the connection to Darkseid.
I'm with you. I'm agreeing that that's the connections coming from those nanites somehow. I didn't know if it's just that he's able to tap in because of that tech, or if it is the mother box. I don't know. It's cool. I want to see. I'm with you. I do think there's a connection there. I'm just not quite sure what they are yet. I don't know that I don't need to know that right now. I actually like that Morrow got cut off and there's a mystery there and it's fun to follow it. Mm-hmm. But it's good stuff. Now, seeing Darkseid in that moment, this is a great one. What I love about it is it's classic Darkseid. They haven't changed him so much, even though we're only seeing the back of him and like a little bit of a side profile, like over his shoulder. They haven't changed so much of him that he's unrecognizable, but it's clear that they've modernized him too. It's got a Kirby look to it while having, it's clear like, okay, we're going more of the horror aspect. We're really adding this sense of, when he's standing there, that's Darkseid to me. Strongly standing there. We're seeing a guy who clearly has a plan. This is somebody who's intelligent, vicious, calculating. That's Darkseid. There's just an immediate imposing nature to Darkseid there in those moments. And I love it. That's something that is very well done. As he flips his head around, it's very clear that is our Darkseid that we've always seen. That is that character again. And it's a very good revamp. And that's something I think that's been a strength to almost every revamp in this. I can't think of one that really the characters feel unrecognizable. I think they got to the core of who they are. Sure, there's been some changes and modifications and things like that, but they still feel like those characters. It just works really well.
Oh, amen. And again, it's got to have a creepy factor to it. It's got to have a horror factor to it. It's got to have that feel of just this, hellish monster. And definitely throughout that page, just that nice glimpse of him, I was very excited for it because I was like, yes, this is nice. And it heads into the next page with our intro to Aquaman. Again, another great intro of a hero. It's just like they really are laying it out here, and they're really hitting on all cylinders for me.
Yeah, it's a perfect introduction time for Aquaman, who I'm loving right now in his own book. So it's great to see him here in that same kind of presentation. He looks cool.
He's got a nice style and a nice attitude to him. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how he deals with everyone, especially so who's in charge here? I vote me.
Yeah. Now, Dane Dorrance from the back, that back part where they kind of do the history, he was part of the Sea Devils. So I love that they're going into that history. I just looked it up because I wanted to make sure. So he's part of the Sea Devils. So I love that they went to some of the classic explorers in DC, knowing that now that we know that the Challengers of the Unknown are going to have their own little story going on in that DC Universe Presents, and we've got. So I like this. It's really kind of cool that they're bringing in a lot of the explorers, the people who would go to check out Atlantis to see if it's still around. Well, why not Dane? So I don't know. That's something I thought that was interesting. That name does have a rich history in DC. Instead of just some random person that has.
Well, I just took it as just some random person, to be honest with you. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't, and I like that because it didn't need to be. I like these kind of sketchbook things in the back as well.
Yeah,
seeing like how Hal was constructed, even though that it on the surface it looks like Hal's outfit wasn't modified. It was little tiny tweaks.
You didn't need to do a full revamp on a lot of people. There's little tweaks here, little modifications here, and this uniform, this outfit fits in this universe just wonderfully. It's not like there's something dramatic that needed to be overhauled.
No, not at all. Absolutely. Actually, if anything, it's a nice little kind of hybrid tweak between this and the movie and what we're seeing in the cartoon. There's a recognizable thing while you haven't changed the comic book world for Hal. And I think that's kind of the key. A lot of times, the media forces changes to the comic book world. This really hasn't. It's kind of a nice little hybrid without altering the core of... because to me, the comic book world is the core that everything else branches out of. And to make drastic changes there based on the outside, I think always feels forced and never really works. This doesn't feel forced. And I think that's really an important distinction. I hate those forced changes where it's kind of like, wait, you're doing what now to this character? And why are we doing this? Just because it was in a movie? No, it should be the other way around. It should be the comic book world that drives some of the movie changes. And, I think when that's done that way, it works well. And you can take little bits and pieces from that outside media and make it a part of the comic book world, but you don't want to change the core of it. And they didn't do that with Hal. I'm glad. Justice League is an awesome book.
Hey, so the book, man, that a lot of people after the first issue gave up on. Yeah, and hopefully they'll come back to it.
They gave up on Justice League after the first issue?
Yeah, I heard a bunch of people saying, I really didn't like it. I don't want to deal with it. What's this? And
sales numbers aren't showing that, though.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the New 52 sales are still strong. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's going to be some sale drop from the initial of Justice League 1 because of just the buzz surrounding the whole thing. There was people coming out of the woodwork picking up Justice League number 1. I'm going to assume this is still their flagship top seller right now. Because, we haven't heard any... Think about it. Nobody's called into the show with negativity about this book.
Right.
I mean, that's a good sign. Nobody calling up and saying, wow, Justice League, I was really kind of underwhelmed by the whole thing. I think, if anything, we've gotten, as the more issues have come out, more and more people have been into the book. So, I don't know. I think what they've been doing with this new... I think this is where pre-orders, I think, probably helped a book like this. Not just this book. I think a lot of the new DC books, because some of them have required like 2 or 3 issues to see the direction. This Justice League, I liked it right out of the starting gate. I think it's only gotten better as it's come along, as you've seen the story. I think it was right out of the starting gate a wow moment, though. I remember coming home and reading it right afterwards and then reading it again, right afterwards. And this is in the middle of the night when I should be going to sleep. So, I mean, I don't know how that first issue you could read that and not be excited. I don't get that. That was, so if those comments were out there, I try to stay away from those, I find. Because I find they're usually from people who haven't really read the issue.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, I can't even give you where I read the stuff. But when these issues first came out, I was out there looking, just trying to scout and see what people are saying and see if I was seeing more negative or more positive. And the Justice League was the one that kind of did surprise me, that I saw a lot of people say, I don't know. It seemed I don't like their relationship. I don't like how, and there was a lot of focus on negativity between Hal and Batman, which I thought was a great relationship between the two of them. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, whatever. And yeah, obviously I didn't pay too much attention to him, but I did want to see what was out there. So it's,
hang on. Wait, hang on. I did read that.
Yeah.
Where people were talking about that, but a lot of those comments, when I heard that from people, the same people that were saying that they were interested in reading the second issue, they wanted to continue on. They didn't like how, the adversarial relationship between Hal and Bruce at first, but I think they weren't putting it into context. But I will say a lot of the same reviews that I read from reviewers who were talking like that, they weren't saying they were dropping the book or they hated the book. They were picking out specific things that were like criticisms, but then they followed those up with things that they actually really enjoyed about the book as well. So I don't know that that was a full picture in those cases. I wonder if those were isolated snippets.
Could be.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I would love to hear from our listenership in general. I'm going to put up a poll on the site. How are you feeling about Justice League now? 3 issues in. I'd love to kind of see that. So anybody out there, and please, honest comments. I'll put a poll up with 3 different, viewpoints. Hey, great, in the middle, not my cup of tea. And just, I'd love to get kind of a climate survey on our listenership, because I'm making assumptions too, in that I'm assuming everybody's loving this as much as I am. I can't. That's not fair. Let me throw it out there. So I'd love to just throw that. So I'll throw a poll up on the website. I'd love to see what your thoughts are. Give us a vibe on what you're doing. So go to ragingbullets.com with this episode, and you'll see a poll up there. Kind of cool.
Cool.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Hey guys, this is Matt_Megas on Twitter again. You guys had a voicemail on your last episode about JLI and what does Batman see in Booster Gold, and there was a big question about, what do people know and what they don't. Well, considering the only 2 people that know that the Flashpoint thing happened in the first place are the Flash and Batman, and that Batman has his own little bizarre sort of paradox in his world in which he's basically trained Tim, Jason, Dick, and now Damian to all become relatively decent crime fighters in their own right. I think Batman's figured out some of the paradoxes of the difference between the Flashpoint world and this world. And if I were to think off the page, I would definitely say that if anyone knows anything, it's Bruce. All right, that's it. Bye.
The logic in what he's saying, I totally agree with it. So I totally agree with what Matt's saying logically. It's just that we've heard so many times from convention interviews from various different creative team members and editors and things like that out of DC that nobody knows what happened during Flashpoint. That's one of the areas where I'm kind of like, I'm of the mind that nobody knows, including the Flash. Other than the Flash knows that he went to an alternate universe, for Flashpoint. But I don't think the Flash is aware of... I think he's aware that he went to Flashpoint, but not aware of what happened in the DC Universe beforehand. Coming back changed everything, so he has no memory of what was before. There is no connection there. His past is the past of our current universe, not the previous one. Is that how you're taking it for everybody?
Yes, completely agree with you on that. And I don't think there is any connection back to what was the DCU beforehand. There's Flash and Bruce know about the Flashpoint universe, but not before that. Before that doesn't exist. And I'm still holding on to the fact, I think that Bruce knows... I think Booster is the greatest hero no one ever knew about. And he is just playing it off. And Bruce knows about it because of the same way he knew about it in the previous universe with the Joker's camera.
Except here's my question on that. How much of... I agree with what you're saying to a certain extent. I agree that Bruce knows more about Booster, or at least has faith in Booster in a way that other people don't. But my question is, how much of that history did happen with Booster? I don't know how much of that actually happened. Those questions haven't been answered yet. I agree that the possibilities there that some of that did happen with Booster, but I don't know how much did and didn't. I think we have a lot of question marks on Booster Gold's involvement in the current present-day DC universe. Because it has to be the current universe, not the past universe. So what we think happened with Booster, with Barbara Gordon even, for example, how much of that actually happened? Did that actually happen with Booster? I don't know that it did.
Yeah, I don't know. This is my gut, my guess. This is just, my whatnot senses are tingling, and it's telling me that Booster isn't what we think he is. And I think the main thing for me why is we're seeing Booster through the opinions of everybody else. We're not seeing internal dialogue. We're not seeing Booster, especially in like the high stress times, the high area where he's got to do his job. We're not seeing him think things out. We're not seeing him. We're just seeing just this external image that everybody else sees. And that's why I think it. But I could be completely wrong. And to be honest, I'm okay with that. I'm really comfortable with where the universe is, what they're doing, and how they're laying out the stories, letting it not be locked into stone right from the beginning. They're letting the creative teams that are on the books lay it out. We're eventually going to find out about Booster. We're eventually going to find out about Rip Hunter, and we're going to find out about Skeets. We're going to find out about what happened in Killing Joke. We're going to find all this stuff, all these questions that we have eventually, but we're going to find it out in the context of a current story. And I'm cool with that.
Well, here's the funny thing, and this is the little twist with that. What if Batman just sees the potential of Booster Gold? Like, I think we're like, there is a possibility that Bruce is taking Booster at face value. And obviously, the Justice League has been around for a certain amount of time, right? The regular Justice League. Yeah. But what if Booster, is basically being given the benefit of the doubt, not because of anything he's done traveling through time, but because of what he's done in modern day, and Batman just has faith in the potential of him? Like, what if that is the cup of tea there? Like, that is something that, is a possibility on the table.
And as you're saying it, I'm sitting there saying, I love that. That would be awesome. That would be kind of, Batman sort of taking on the Rip Hunter-esque role where he knows that Booster can do more, and maybe, Batman would take Booster under his wing. I think that would be some really cool stories. I would be happy with that. I'd love that. That would be, good reading. Again, tell me within the context of the story, and I'm happy with it.
It's still a mystery. I'm not set in stone on any of that. So I agree with everything you said before. I'm like, okay, that's a definite possibility. But what if this? Yeah. I actually like what you're saying, that this is stuff we're going to find out along the way with the character, and I'm enjoying that. I don't think that there's a lot of things I don't think are set in stone. I think that is one of the creative parts of this new DC, is that they can take what feels right from the past and use it, and abandon what doesn't because of the fact that it really is a different world. So nothing is set in stone. So any assumption that we possibly might have is something that can be taken right out of off the table.
Yeah. Now, when I'm sitting here and I'm saying, "Hey, this is cool. Take your time. I want to I want to read the story." I do have like a timeline in my head how long I'm willing to wait for this. Now, I do want to get some answers, and I'm thinking 10, 15 years. I want to know by then.
Okay, 10, 15 years. You want to know by then. What happens if you don't?
I'm in a hurry. I'm in a hurry.
What are you going to do if you don't know in 10, 15 years?
Well, then I'll just assume that those 10 years were wasted, and I'll just keep reading. I do want to have some. It's kind of like the Lois and Clark wedding as well. 10, 15 years, I'd like to see another wedding. At least. If they do it before then, I'll be happy with that, because as long as I get a cool story. But, I do eventually want to see that go into somewhere. Barry and Iris, I'd like to see it go somewhere. And just, there are some stories that I do want to see them go, but take their time. Have fun with it. Let the creative team do their thing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Hey guys, this is Jamie Dunst, JD74 in the boards, and I wanted to talk about some books that I really enjoyed. First one being Green Lantern #3. I thought this was, again, great story, great art. I love the first page where you see Carol, and she's really, worried about Hal, and she answers the phone thinking it's Hal, but it's Tom, and having her look at, her scene, Hal and Sinestro teaming up again, and I really love the interactions between Hal and Sinestro. I think, something that bothers me in the last issue is Hal seemed to have almost regressed a bit in how he uses the ring. Like, is Sinestro a better ring wielder than Hal? I've always thought that they were equal, at the very least equals. In this, it really seems like Hal's almost a rookie compared to Sinestro. And other than that, I really love in the book, but it just seems like compared to Sinestro, I feel like Hal's almost seems like a rookie. Like he doesn't know as much as Sinestro, and maybe that's the point of this, but it doesn't seem like he's the veteran that I remember him to be, and maybe that's part of the relaunch. I'm not really sure. One of the things I really loved about this was how Sinestro is showing Hal a new point of the book, the costume, that it could go like dark, so you could be like, you can do recon missions, and I thought that was interesting. Another thing I liked is when Hal says, don't to Sinestro, don't think you're better than me, and he looks at him for a second and then just starts laughing, and he knows, saying, I know I'm better than you, and again showing a concept, something about the ring, you can make his costume go dark was an interesting concept. I like the part about the Guardians and making their third army. I wonder if this is when we'll see the Alpha Lanterns come back. But that was interesting. I love this contrast between Hal and Sinestro. They one is too serious, one is more fun and daring. If anything, I kind of see a Kirk and Spock relationship between the two, because one's very cowboyish and the other one's very stoic, and it's a very interesting relationship. And if Hal becomes a Green Lantern again full time, which I'm sure he will, I wonder if they'll be partners, because that would be a really cool and interesting partnership. So that was something I really liked, and I'm really interested in the choreographing woman named Arsona. I'm really interested in her backstory, because obviously Sinestro has some history with her, so that was cool. And then, of course, you got the last page, which, oh my God, that was in something I didn't see. So that was an interesting book. The second book I want to talk about is Batgirl #3. this was a great issue. The art is continuing to be stunning. I love the interaction between Barbara and Dick Grayson. I thought the fight was really interesting. I thought, it turned out to be like a flirty, fun thing turned into something a whole lot more. And this issue really seemed to put a stress on, Barbara pushing away the people that care about her the most. And I like that it really involved her and Dick Grayson. And I find it interesting that she keeps calling him Richard instead of Dick. But, it's a relaunch, whatever. I thought overall it was really good. I'm looking forward to seeing how this story arc ends with this bad guy. And I thought I really like how the more I see Nightwing in this costume, the more I'm really liking it. I thought the two of them fighting was interesting and cool, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it other than it was really, really good, and I can't wait for more. So that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
It's funny. I agree with what he's saying about Hal feeling like he's taken a step back, but I don't think it's because Hal has necessarily lost any of the experience that we're used to him having. I think what the issue is, it's that I think he's so shocked by what he's learning from Sinestro. The secrets of the ring, things that he never knew that the ring could do, that nobody knew that the ring could do. Sinestro is teaching him. So we're learning why Sinestro was one of the top-tier lanterns of all time, because he knows things that no other lantern has ever figured out. I have to wonder, are these things that Sinestro discovered that were secrets that the Guardians were keeping from the lanterns to keep them limited, that he knew all along? Is this part of what caused the rift between him and the Guardians, realizing that they've always held back on the lanterns? Is that a possibility here? I'm getting more and more intrigue about the whole thing, because we're seeing behind the scenes the Guardians no longer have faith in the Corps, and the Guardians are trying to set up a new kind of army. And I don't think they're going to be the Alpha Lanterns. I think it's going to be the next phase. The Guardians are going to go in a whole new direction now, and that's going to be interesting. How are the Lanterns going to deal with that?
I don't think.
Go ahead.
I don't think the Lanterns are going to be too happy, and I think we're going to see a continuation of a fight between the Guardians versus the Green Lanterns. And that, for me, I think is something I would love to see, because you have the Guardians, have just this unlimited power where they're just, in a theory, they gave the Green Lanterns their power, and you would think they could take it away in a heartbeat. But if your power is based solely on willpower, that is the strength of the Green Lantern. Can you truly get your power taken from you? Can you will it back? And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a struggle between Green Lanterns and Guardians thinking, oh, we can just take the power from them because we gave it to them. And the Lanterns say, no, you can't. This is our power. We create. You may have, opened the doorway, but in truth, we are the source of the power. It is our will that powers these rings, and I think we're going to see like the next evolution of the Green Lantern come out of this.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It's an interesting thing that I'm really enjoying about the series is because this is something we've seen before with the Guardians. They did this with the Manhunters. So now we're seeing it from the perspective of what's happening to the Green Lantern Corps. Now, we can justify what they did to the Manhunters. On the other hand, I think we all believe they're going too far with what they're doing with the Lantern Corps. And they've been doing that for quite some time. That was way before this.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing that's a development that's happened over time. What I'd be curious about is that unfolding story for new readers. I wonder how they're jumping on that. That seems to be being delivered very well for a new reader, but I wonder for somebody maybe who hasn't seen the history that we have with it, if they're in the same spot we are. And does it matter if they're not? I don't know that it does. I think they've given enough information that, hey, this is what's going on currently with the Corps, but I find that part kind of fascinating. Because there is a great deal of that, I should say. I was going to say part of it, but there's a great deal of that really has been developed a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think they're laying it out well enough that, a new reader is going to understand that they're being jerks. That it's you're going to see it. It's not a subtlety of they're flat out being very open about just open to the reader, not to the lanterns. The reader is seeing just exactly, pulling back the curtain and seeing what their plans are and what they're doing. So I think I want to say that this has probably got some good flow through for a new reader. But again, it's something that this is I think I would say with Green Lantern title, you got to make a commitment to it. And with each issue coming out, with each thing you're reading, you're learning a little bit more about this. You're learning to get more. This is definitely something that if you picked up one, you were lost and you walked away from it. I would say give 2 and 3 a shot and just just see where it goes through that first story arc, because as it's building, it's making things a little bit clearer and you're getting a really cool story out of it.
Well, I think comics in general, though, I think that there's serialized storytelling. So you're not going to get everything in one issue. None of us ever do. But I mean, there's got to be, I think that there's a need to be a balance, which I think has been part of the discussions about, it just seems to have happened more with Green Lantern than the other titles, just because I think we started that with that discussion with the first phone call. It was Jamie that called up with that. I think, was there a hook or not to get you to read the next issue? And I think that is really the key. It's A or B on that. And if there was a hook, anything that was confusing are things that you do figure out over time. Some comics spoon feed it to you better than others because it's the nature of where the story's at and the type of story that's being told. I want it to be different, though. I want every title to feel a little bit different in its accessibility and what you need to learn and what kind of mystery needs to unfold over time. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Green Lantern universe right now that I'm confused about, in a good way. With what's going on with the Guardians and all. A lot of the questions, actually, we are on equal footing on, even if we don't have all the history, because I'm still not entirely sure, where are the Guardians going to go with this? So I think we're all kind of on, and you're making that point, that we're kind of on equal footing there. I think they've given you enough information on what you need to be kind of in the same place, like they're being putzes, and how bad that's going to get with them, we're not really quite sure yet. But it's going to get bad. Talking about Batgirl number 3, that's a title, issue 1, 2, and 3, I've been adoring straight on through. Issue 3, anytime you take Dick Grayson and put him with Barbara Gordon and really establish how that relationship works no matter what's going on and what kind of turmoil they've been through, you felt real love between those two and real honesty in that relationship, and just how everything that Barbara's gone through has put a caution with her. Like, you feel that part of her that wants to embrace a relationship with him, wants and him too. They're both of them are hesitating to say "I love you." Him less so, actually. He's manning up and taking that leap and really implying that he's got feelings for her and he wants them to have a relationship. Without coming maybe and saying it exactly to that extent, he's I don't know how you can't get much more in the face than he does. But she's got to be standoffish on that because of her own reluctance, because of everything she's been through, her own insecurities, trying to feel confident again after all she's gone through. She's been scarred. I mean, this is a woman who, not only could she not walk, but she doesn't know how long she still can. And I love that twist to this whole thing. I guess I've been so focused on the fact that she's up and running as Batgirl again, I didn't consider the fact that she's got to deal with on a daily basis, how long will this last? And that she's risking that physically every time she goes out there. She is pushing herself farther than any physician would ever let her do this. Really overdoing it very, very quickly since she's been able to walk again. So that's something where Dick's in her face about it, saying, hey, Bruce and I are worried about you because of this. And I love that it's not because she's a female, it's because of the fact that whether it was a male or female, I could see them having the same discussion with Damian. Or with Dick Grayson. Let's say Dick Grayson was the one who was shot in his back and all that. I could see Bruce saying to him, hey, wait a minute, are you sure you should be up and around again? You were paralyzed. And should you maybe cool it for a bit? Because Bruce has a definite double standard as Batman, where if Bruce was shot and walking again, Well, I mean, we saw what happened with Bane.
Yeah.
His back was broken, and yes, he was willing to give up being Batman again during, Nightfall. But the second that he realized that he had a responsibility there, he jumped right back into the game. I mean, he went through some quick training and then, took on Azrael, who, as Bats. So, I don't know. It's interesting to see, their reaction to Barbara, why Barbara would be resistant to that, why she loves Dick Grayson, but yet, needs him to step back and let her handle this on her own, let her take charge of her life again, because if she doesn't, she will constantly be scared of what the Joker's done to her. She will, and we've seen that in these issues. That was one of the things that, in the first issue, the gunplay that went in there, and how that made her freeze, that's something that's a scar that she is fighting to get past. I love that. There's something about that I feels rich and interesting about the character. And, it's not being ignored. It's not all of a sudden she's magically healed. There's internal mental scars that have gone through what she's going through. And I love that. And I love that it's affecting their relationship between the two. And that there is a love there, though. It feels so real because many relationships just don't work out that way. Bad timing. That's what this is. This is a relationship filled with love that is not able to go in a positive direction forward because of bad timing. Dick Grayson's ready to go there. Barbara's not. I love that. I just something felt so honest about it. That was, and you can't help but feeling there's a tragedy between those two. That I root for them. I always want to see those two be together. I think there's something about them that just kind of hits the heartstrings. I thought that was beautifully written. I thought it was very natural. I thought the Richard thing was kind of her way of kind of talking to him like, it's anytime you're in a little bit of trouble, you're called by your full name.
Yeah.
And I think she was deliberately doing that to put up a wall. I think calling him Richard was about putting up a wall, right?
I completely read that as the using like the full name, the proper name, just to kind of back off, or you're to let you know you're in trouble. The one day I knew I was really in trouble was when you're called first, middle, and last name. And you're like, oh, I kind of took it as combination of distancing, but also just this isn't a friendly, light conversation between us.
Well, especially when their little training banter between the two of them, they were doing a test fight between the two of them. It turned real.
Yeah.
And she was kicking him like it was real. And not like it was real, it became real.
It was real.
Yeah, and that's what a tough thing to go through in a relationship because Dick Grayson's got to decide, how far do I go with this? How far do I let this go with her? She's proving a point. I get that, and she's making sure I'm not holding back. But how far can I take that? And it was something interesting. It would, in a weird way, I would almost like to see a real fight between the two of them and what that winds up being like.
Those two throwing down for 100% real, no holds barred. That would be an interesting fight, and I think for me, between the two of them, would have to depend on what type of environment they're in. Because with his acrobatic style, with her, just I don't think she's as polished of a. I was going to say that she's not as polished a fighter, but she is, trained and she is good. But I don't want to knock any of her fighting skills because she's good. If this was real life, she'd kick my butt without batting an eye or breaking a sweat. But going up against someone the level of Dick Grayson, I think I would give him the edge if he had the proper environment where he could use his fighting style, use his acrobatic flip, spin, that style.
Yeah. I don't know. It would be interesting to see too. And I love that she was doing more of the ballet thing, and he was doing more of the acrobatic thing. I love that was the twist between the two of them, and that she was talking about the reference of what her athletic background was versus his. I like that there was a distinction there. It wasn't cookie cutter, and that those skills would have to come into place and be played a little bit differently. And I love that she kept finding the things that she fell in love with him for in those sequences where you almost heard her ready to say it, and you wanted her to say it, but it just didn't. I don't know, just something about that. I just loved I loved the balance. It was like emotionally driven in that sequence. It was one of my favorite issues of the month of any comic, was that Batgirl #3, just because of the just that incredible interaction between the two of them, which is just great character-driven writing that I love. That's a book that, if I had to go down to one or two books, Batgirl would be in there for sure.
Oh,
I could not drop that book in a million years.
Now, let me ask you a question. What if she loses everything? She's back to being unable to fight, walk, the full, she's 100% full on back. Would you want to see then Oracle? Would you want to see Stephanie? Where would you want this to go? You
mean if she was full on back, able to walk again without
full on back, unable to walk?
Oh,
at a
I don't see that happening. I see her staying Batgirl. I guess I don't see her going back to being Oracle. But you're saying hypothetically, if she went back into the chair.
Or do you think like a 10-year plan for this title could be her going back to Oracle? Yeah, because they've planted seeds of possibility.
I think the possibilities are to show the reality that when you come back from that type of thing, it's not just instantaneous, magically you're all better. You have to deal with the emotional curveball of you could wind up back in a wheelchair again. I think that was just a way of showing that this is a girl who was paralyzed, and that is going to have a psychological effect to you. You're not going to just be bam. I think that's what makes her unique and interesting. She's dealing with different things than Batwoman is because of the fact that she's been in a wheelchair, and the fact that she was shot and paralyzed. And for her to be doing what she's doing again and to be Batgirl again, there is a different dynamic. There's a different kind of courage to what she's doing. So I don't think that's being, my personal opinion, it's not put in a place to put her really back into being Oracle. I don't see that being the plan. I see the plan is for us to see, can she get past that? Will we see her eventually be strong enough to overcome that? And is that something that will always be a worry for her because of the fact that she was paralyzed? I don't know if you ever do get 100% over that. Yeah. And I think that makes this a different approach to Batgirl than we've ever seen before. So I don't know.
Cool.
So I know I don't see this. I'm not thinking Oracle right now with her. Although I am to the extent that I'm thinking this is Barbara Gordon. But I don't see her necessarily jumping back into the Oracle identity from this. I don't. Are you?
No.
Okay.
No, I just threw that out there because I figured I'd probably get a good commentary from you. I'm seeing this as, showing this it's the strength of Barbara, and we saw that what she overcame to become Oracle was just an amazing feat, and there's still that strength of character in her. And just because she's walking doesn't mean we're losing that same strength of character. We're losing that same person who takes adversity head on and it's like, hey, I'm not laying down. I'm not going to quit. And that's what we're getting out of this, and that's what we're seeing out of this. Now, maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the line, maybe there would be another change in the character, and who knows? Maybe she'll get to the point where she can't keep doing it, and she's got to find a replacement. Or, it could be something as time goes on, she's hurt. You never know. We could get that, and that would be, and after a period of time of her doing this, I wouldn't have an issue with her saying, you know what? Reality is I'm getting older. I hurt. There's some stuff that I can't do anymore. It's not safe. It'd be better to bring up the next generation.
See, to me, 10, 15, 20 years down the line could be another reboot. Yeah. You don't know what direction, the DC Comics will go at that point. It's not the first time that we've seen reboots for characters. Although, admittedly, the Killing Joke one lasted a long, long time. So, the Oracle thing. So, I don't know. It's be interesting to see, what the direction the character goes in. I'm greatly enjoying this right now with her because it's different. And it's different from her original appearance as Batgirl. It's different from her appearance as Oracle. And it's not ignoring, though, that she would have mental consequences to the whole thing. I don't know. I'm really digging that title just a great deal. And I agree totally with Jamie that was an incredibly cool issue of that book.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Well, our next book will be Legion of Superheroes #3. The writer is Paul Levitz. The artist Francis Portela, colorist Javier Mena, letterer Pat Brousseau, editor Chris Conroy, and cover by Chris Sprouse, Carl Story, and Guy Major.
Now, this is an interesting book with the Shadow War and this whole Legion thing going on, because it really has continued from the previous series. There was an ending point, a definite ending, with the death of Earthman that kind of put the team in a position of transition. And then what's happened with the Legion Lost, with the team going to present day and part of the team staying in the past, the Legion was in a major transition. So it is a new status quo. But I love that, their past, at least the recent past that we've seen with these characters, is still relatively in place, which is true of the Legion through a lot of these big earth-shattering changes that have happened in DC. They've just kind of folded into it. This team kind of weathers all this. I always take it as time has changed around them. Their history books are different now. Their sense of what the history is different now. If that makes sense. It's not just that everything's static and they remember everything that happened before. It's history has changed for them. Just the events that have actually, the battles they've fought, the villains they've faced, all of those things are still in place relative to the Legion.
Well, they're so far in the future that the fact that we have heroes, the fact that we have Superman, Batman, we had a Justice League, we've had all these things, the big, broad picture events have occurred regardless of how the finite details are told. So for them, just the broad strokes are all they need, and the broad strokes are what affects them. So we can change around our lifestyle, we can change around our world pretty dramatically, and it won't affect them because of they just deal really from the broadness of it. And I like that. And they're dealing right now with the time, being locked down, and they're trying to figure that out from the Flashpoint effect. But it's, again, the whole thing where, as a general rule, it just keeps going, and it just keeps rolling on, and they're pulling stuff from the past Legion stories with the whole, dark side and the Great Darkness, and I love seeing that, elements of that playing out in here, and this is just a fun, awesome Legion story, and just, it's one of the things where I went into this, I'm comfortable with a lot of these characters, like, Dragon Wing and Comet Queen. I know who these people are. I was like, yeah, I know them. I saw them come up the ranks. This is nice, and I was really enjoying it, and this is a fun Legion story for me.
One of the things that I like is, I liked the Adventure Comics story with the Legion Academy. We got to see a lot of the newer Legionnaires that we're seeing on this team, like you mentioned, Dragon Wing, but Chemical Kid. These are characters who we saw come through the ranks. They're now part of the main team. We've got some wily veterans here with, the ones that have been here and established for some time, like Phantom Girl, who I have always loved, Chameleon Boy. These are all characters who you expect to see on the Legion. I like that both teams, Legion Lost and this team, feel somewhat, in their mind, diminished because certain characters are missing. That there's certain heavy hitters that are missing on both sides, certain things that they've come to expect. And there's still a mystery to the Legion as far as, that political nature of it. Who can you trust? There's points, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, where I'm wondering how much you can really trust Brainiac 5.
Yeah, Brainy is an interesting character that I always hesitate to say he's my favorite Legionnaire, just because I don't completely know he's a good guy all the time. Mm-hmm. But he is just, I do enjoy a good Brainy story where you do see him being a little bit smarmy, a little bit like you just want to reach in a book and punch him a couple times. And you don't want to kill him. You just want to just, kind of put him in his place. You want to humble him just a little bit, just because, and then you find out he's right, and you hate it even more. You're like, dang it, I wish you were wrong.
Now, this renegade Daxamite, am I the only one that feels like the Dominators were one of the races he was studying? and this is the reason he came off-world? Is there a connection between the Dominator War, the coming Dominator War, and...
100%.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of thrown in your face, just obvious that, because they talk about when he's studying off-world, but he stayed on-world. It was remote access. I'm thinking he was studying directly from the Dominators, and they're the ones who gave him the equation, the formula that allows him to be off-world, so the lead and the heavy metals do not affect him. I'm figuring they gave it flat out to him for this whole purpose. Send him to this planet, let him be the initial lead-in, and then they come in and sweep in behind him. I
love seeing, as this kind of war is going on, the testing of Glorith. This Glorith is a character who Glorith isn't Glorith, I think is how it's pronounced. I keep throwing an N in there. I keep calling her Glorith, but it's really Glorith.
Yeah.
She was connected with the Black Witch, White Witch character, and this is giving them a chance to have somebody who's a magic user back on the team, which I really like. I like that the Legion can kind of go everywhere. I love magical characters. I've always loved the concept of magical energy. I like that even though Brainiac was testing her, he knew that his shields would keep her protected. But it's these shields, these magical shields that she can make, what kind of power do they have? And how do they compare to what Brainy can make with technology? And that's interesting because this character is pretty well-rounded and can add something to the team. They don't know yet with a lot of these new Legionnaires, though, how would they react in a squad? What is their usefulness in a squad? When you're sending out groups of Legionnaires, which is what they do all the time, they have this large team, and it seems like, wow, with the Legionnaires, you should be able to really handle anything. But they're handling the whole universe, the Legion of Superheroes. They're not just handling their team. They're not just handling Earth. These are representatives from all of the planets in the United, Federation, or whatever, how they term it. They're handling all those planets. They've got to keep, political ties. They've got to keep, a presence there. And they're not always loved in every world they go on. So when they go into a situation, they've got to try to handle it as diplomatically and as quickly as possible to prevent the loss of lives, to prevent anything that makes them look bad. That's part of their charter. So it's really interesting, and that's something I've loved about the Legion stories, and I like the distinction between this book and Legion Lost because of that. None of that has been lost in this book. Legion Lost, they aren't dealing with that the same way. They're stuck with a much different problem of not tampering with the past, and if anything, of saving the past to save their future. Because if the past gets destroyed, so I like the two Legion books have very distinct different roles and different places. I got heavy into the Legion again with that Mark Waid run where it was filled with tons of political intrigue. This has got a lot of it back in there again, and I'm really digging it. It's even the battle between Brainiac 5 and Mon-El. Brainiac 5 looking for Mon-El to kind of slip up so he can suggest himself carefully as being the leader of the Legion again, and Mon-El should step down. I love that kind of stuff. These guys, they have to work together. They have to be part of the same group. But Mon-El Brainiac 5 wants to see Mon-El fail because it would be to his benefit. Mm-hmm. I think he'd be happy to be Legion Emperor. That's the way he carries himself.
Oh, definitely. And it's those qualities of Brainy that make me hate him, but also like him at the same time. It's those, like this when he's testing on Glorith, who I kept referring to as Gloria, by the way. So if you hear me slip up and say Gloria, I'm talking Glorith, but for some reason Gloria is just always sucking, that's her name. When he's testing and experimenting on her with the shielding, I didn't notice the first time through that she had his force field belt on. It's very clearly there, but I was just focusing on all the, kind of the dialogue. I was focusing on Brainy. I was focusing on everything, and I didn't see the belt around her waist. So I'm sitting there like, dude, you're blasting her. What are you doing, you jerk? And then you flip the page, and you see she's got the force field belt on. I'm like, oh, God, that's cool. So it's those moments of hatred and, enjoyment of Brainy, which makes me really, like him as a character. And it's funny because part of the reason I list Legion Lost as above Legion of Superheroes. And believe me, it is a tough back and forth battle going back between the two. But one of the reasons I do like Legion Lost is because they don't have the connection to their time period. They don't have a Brainy they could go to. They don't have the equipment and scientific resources available to them. They're really lost in time. They have no access. They have no support structure other than themselves. And that is why I put that above Legion of Superheroes. But I'm not knocking this title. This title is a wonderful title. And I'm really, I'm heavy into the Legion. I get the passion behind the Legion of superheroes. I get everyone's support and love for it, because I'm sitting here right along with you saying, man, this is cool.
One of the reasons why on this show I don't bother a whole lot with, because people have asked in the past, why don't we do a lot of top 5, top 10 lists for the month? I don't read my comics that way. I guess, I'm not trying to with the Legion, and I'm not saying, don't get me wrong on this, I'm not saying you're wrong for saying that you like one title over the other more, or you're getting connection there. It's not the way I read these books, though. So, I mean, we're reading this differently. Like, I don't care which one's better out of the two, because I'm not really having that experience with the Legion. I appreciate the distinction between the two titles. I like when there's a validity. Like, I'm loving this title as much as I'm loving Legion Lost for very different reasons, because they're two distinctly different Legion titles. Yet I feel there's a connection between the two, because obviously, they're part of the same team. This is a squad that has come from this team that's in present day. I don't find that I'm finding one title particularly superior to the two. I love the difference. I love that, like we're seeing with these two new kids, there's kind of a flirtation between the two of them. I want to know a lot more about Dragon Wing. I want to see, she's putting out a lot of bravado and a lot of outward stuff, which I know is hiding a lot of inner pain for this character on some level. I want to know more about that. What is making her the way that she is? Is she going to have some kind of relationship with one of the other Legionnaires or somewhere along the way? I don't know. I'm into that kind of stuff. That to me is part of the Legion, and it's part of the whole Legion experience. It's got a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, soap opera-ish. It reminds me of movie serials that I loved in the past, but set in the modern day. When you see Chameleon Boy turning into this dragon-looking thing in that gorgeous artwork, it just makes my jaw drop. And yet, he's now, before, I remember him back when he was kind of the little runt of the group. He was the comic relief. Now he's lecturing them on evasive action training. Yeah. I love that kind of sense of progression for that character. I feel like he's still that same guy that I looked at as being that kind of runt of the litter back in the day, but I love that he's come further. Polar Boy, I get that same kind of vibe from him. There's things that I'm liking about this team that this book has a very cool place between the two. And I think because it's set there's nothing right now in DC set in the far future like this. I love seeing the far future and what that's like. And that's something that I've always liked about the Legion in general as a concept, has been it's a chance for us to see a potential future for the DC universe, because things are constantly changing. And it is because it's set, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, or beginning of the segment, I should say, it's set so far into the future that, it really is something where, you're not going to see the immediate effects of like a life of a Superman, other than the fact that they're influenced by there being one. We know Superman out of everybody is one of the characters that really has influenced this team as a foundation piece. And there's nothing about the current Superman that wouldn't influence this team.
Oh, exactly. And it's funny because I love the fact that the Dominators initially weren't too worried about the Legionnaires, saying, oh, there's none of the dangers, there's none of the powerful ones here. But these Legionnaires here are just completely destroying them without really having the powerful ones throw down or do anything. The intangible girl, she goes through, zips in. Oh yeah, let's see here. Brainy's training on Dominators. Oh yeah, here it is. Boom, one down, one to go, and she just boom instantly takes out the ship like that. Polar Boy shows up. Same thing. He sits there, knows, they've studied on it, they've trained on it, he knows what to do. Bam, he takes down a ship. I love seeing these characters, these quote-unquote weaker members of the Legion, being able to take them down so well. It shows just the fact that these are veterans. They have been in multiple combat. They've been in multiple situations like this where it's an impossible odds, but hey, that's what the Legion does. Even in the very beginning of this, when we see them tossing the ring to Chemical Kid, and he's like, we got to take all of them out. He's like, hey, welcome to the Legion. It's like, bam, this is what we do. And I love seeing that. I love the fun, but there's also just the pending doom of these overwhelming odds against them.
That sequence you're talking about with Phantom Girl where she went into I really love the artwork there, because the artwork in the way that she carries herself, the way that there's something mischievous about her. I called her Phantom Lady by accident because I was thinking of the classic character from Freedom Fighters, Phantom Lady. But I'm looking at this Phantom Girl, and one of the things that I love the presentation here. A little playful, little mischievous in what she's doing. That would fit the power set. It's sneaking into places, a little under the radar. And that's the way she should move, the way that she should carry herself, the way the presentation should be. I loved that. There was that whole visual sequence there, besides just the great dialogue, was something that really worked. The art team is really working on this series for me. And that's something, this issue in particular, really stood out for me. Personality of characters and the way that they move. Because a lot of times we focus just on facial features. In this way, it's not just the facial, it's the way she's moving, the way she's carrying herself that I really loved in that whole presentation. It worked really well for me.
And it's funny because we're talking just not just facial features, but just the overall look. And every single time we're getting these backgrounds, which is something that also really impressed me because it is a futuristic background. And throughout the combat sequences, throughout inside the ship that looks like an alien ship, when we see them heading over to Daxam, we see what the Daxam landscape's like. There's just a lot of variations, and this isn't, New York, Metropolis, or Gotham. This is a future. This is an alternate world, on the other side of the galaxy. It's got to have its own style. It's got to have its own look to it. And I was really glad. I'm always glad when they personalize the worlds that they're at in a Legion story.
Now, Shadowlass, when we see her take, the Mon-El's fighting the Renegade, and then Shadowlass puts everything into the dark, and we start seeing a combination of the powers of these two working together. But Cosmic Boy has uncovered something, that we mentioned earlier about the fact that, and I do agree with you, I think the two of us are totally on the same page, that this guy was studying the Dominators. But it was really, what was it, Element Lad? Is that the name? When he discovered that Brainiac had some kind of secret ingredient in his cure, that he's dancing around, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking Brainiac put something in there that he could turn off the cure if he needed to. It's kind of either a protection for them if anything ever happens and Mon-El turns Renegade. Well, guess what? I turn it off. Or it could be the secret ingredient that makes it work for Mon-El and makes it so that he doesn't have any long-term effects or doesn't have any long-term problems. So I don't know which side it is. I don't know if it's the good side or if it's the just in case something goes wrong side. And that's one of the interesting things about Brainy, especially the way he dances around the subject.
I like Mon-El's new costume, too. It's newish. They've made slight modifications to the costume that we've seen, the classic Mon-El costume. I love the way the cape kind of flows a little bit more over the shoulders, and just the color scheme's just a little bit different. And, we've even seen kind of like splotches of the light blue incorporated into the boots. It adds like a little bit more of a futuristic feel to it. And all the Legionnaires have slight modifications to their, like Element Lad even has slight modifications. Polar Boy looks like slight little modifications to his costume. Nothing too drastic. They're still fully recognizable as to who they are. But I like those little modernizations. They fit what you're seeing in present day with so many of the DC books that why wouldn't we be seeing that in the future?
Yeah, kind of with Mon-El, I don't want to say a Superman feel to the costume because it's not the same costume but for some reason when I was looking at it I did get kind of like especially when you look at like his sleeve area and how you're talking about how the costume drapes just over the shoulders like Clark's suit does now. There's no front connection. It's I don't know, it does for me. If Mon-El was inspired by the look of Superman, then maybe that's where Mon-El kind of got his groove from.
See, I really like, though, that it kind of shows there's no battle armor, and I'm glad they didn't go to that route with Mon-El because, to me, Daxam's a different planet. And sure, there can be some inspiration from Superman and things like that, which I see what you're saying visually, and I agree with that. But I love that he's a Daxamite wearing a suit that was common for him to wear as a Daxamite. There are definite distinctions to him because he had his suit. I believe he had his suit when he first met Superman. So that would be something where there would be some echoes of Krypton because of their relationship with Kryptonians, but it shouldn't look identical. There should be some definite... Right. It should look distinctly Daxam, too. And so it's a nice little hybrid. So I agree with you, but I like the hybridization as well. I love Chameleon Boy sneaking on board the Daxam ship. I mean, the Dominator ship, and hanging back there. I'm going to be curious to see how that plays out, because there's a lot more to this story.
Well, and again, that's kind of a gutsy thing to do. You think about it. One, he's sneaking onto the enemy vessel. Yeah, you got to do that, but they're planning on leaving and heading back to base. So now he's going to be completely separated from the other legions, and if the other legionnaires really don't come in force, he's stuck on this planet, and he's going to have to do some, improvising, adapt, overcome, do some, stick and move. And again, that's a really cool thing. The fact that he's just throwing himself out there. No one gave him the order to do it. They probably know he's there because Brainy talks about the trace, being up and running. So I'm assuming they know that he's on there. They knew what he was going to do, but the fact that you just go and do it's a gutsy move, and it's something I like seeing in the heroes. I like seeing just that, he didn't need the team leader to say, okay, infiltrate that. He knows what he's got to do. He knows what his strengths are, and he's going to use the strengths. And I thought that was a cool play on and a cool usage of the character.
See, I took it differently. I took it that he was told to be there. Picking up the signal from the ship relay. Brainiac doesn't look surprised that relay's in place. He wasn't like, wow, what a great adaptation from Chameleon Boy. I took it as this was something that was planned, a planned infiltration. Now, I will agree that there's a possibility his staying there wasn't originally planned, that he was supposed to put the trace on there and maybe come back. But I do think that they were at least expecting them to have the trace in place, and that was his job to infiltrate and do that, because they don't look remotely shocked, and nobody's sitting here going, hey, where's Chameleon Boy?
Well, and that could be part of the this training and the drilling they've done, and just this is first phase is open hostility. You do infiltration, use that as the cover. So that could all be part of a plan, so it could be set up and standard operating procedure for them. But I kind of read it that he was just doing, he was doing his thing. But it definitely could be a team, a standard practice.
Because he said pick the right ship for a lift, I think. It looked like he was trying to infiltrate, and he just got lucky on the actual ship that he stopped on. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what's really going on here. That's kind of the fun of this. It's not just what we know; it's what we don't know, and seeing how that all plays out. It's kind of fun for me.
You know what? A sequence that I really did enjoy, and it was the whole when Shady, was casting the shadow on the guy, and they're fighting inside it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even just the fact that, it's a nice 1-2 combo. It's the little subtle thing where he's like, what, demon spawn? Hey, that's no way to talk about a lady, even if she is my ex. I like just that little bit there, right in this action sequence, a little bit of comical kind of moment, a little bit of a serious or, kind of moment where you see some personal between these two, especially because we know what happened and everything that happened, how badly their relationship ended. The fact that he is still doing that and he still brings it up, it's a great just story element for anybody who's brand new to this stuff. Now they know about the relationship between these two, and in future stories, if it's explored more, there's already the groundwork laid.
Well, it just didn't stop there. The whole ending sequence was just a great build of that as well. When he goes, oh, let's just say I'm a little more used to action and shadow.
Yeah.
A wise man knows when not to comment, my friend. And you see the look on her face.
Yes.
That was great, though, and I'm with you. I love that kind of stuff. It's that sense of a team history there that was really kind of cool. I don't know. That was this whole team and this whole book. I don't know that I have I know you mentioned your preference between the two books. I think the books are too different for me to compare them. And I love that. I think that's really important when you're launching out of a series. We talk about this a lot when we talk about the Bat Family or the Green Lantern books. The fact that there's a lot of validity to each title and what they bring to the table. I look at the relationship between this book the same way I look at the relationship between Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps, for example. Two very different offerings set in the same Green Lantern universe. This is set in the Legion universe, but two extremely different offerings because of time placement differences. And I don't know that I feel that one's particularly better than the other. I like that they feel so distinctly different that I don't feel that there is a comparison. I don't know that I can compare Green Lantern to Green Lantern Corps anymore, or even the New Guardians. Same thing. Those 3 books, I don't know that I can compare them. They're very different presentations, which is a testament to the creative teams. I think we're seeing a lot more of this. The Batman books. We've got Batman, Detective Comics, and Batman and Robin. I feel those are 3 very different offerings, and those are just the books featuring Bruce.
And Dark Knight.
Oh, yeah, and Dark Knight, absolutely. Yeah, right, absolutely. And 4 different offerings featuring Bruce, and all 4 of those offerings are very different in their approach. Loved Legion.
Amen. And I'm wearing my ring, by the way.
Are you?
Yes.
Cool. You flying around?
No, I think this is a Legion Lost ring. So it doesn't have the access to the power, because I've tried to fly a couple times now, and maybe I need to jump from a higher point, but, so far just jumping off the couch, it doesn't catch and doesn't
I know
fly.
exactly where you can jump from. And I'll film it.
Thanks, pal. Really appreciate that. Nothing but love.
Hey, you opened it up.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Hey guys, this is Jamie Duttons, JD74. I wanted to leave a second message, so I didn't leave like an hour phone call. So I didn't want to rival your guys' entire episode, but I had 2 more books I wanted to talk about. The first one being Batman and Robin #3, and I don't really know what to say about this book. The art and the characterizations of this is just outstanding. I mean, I really love the interaction between Alfred and Damian. I think almost more than I like the interaction between Damian and Bruce. He just doesn't get anything by Alfred. He loses in chess, and then when Damian goes out and Alfred tries to put the tracer on the bike, and Damian sees it and gets rid of it, but doesn't see the one on his cape. I thought that was amazing, and you see that Alfred really is skilled in these sorts of things. And he says, "Don't give up your day job," and Alfred says, "Don't worry, Damian, I won't." And it was really a great characterization of Alfred, and I love Damian, beating up this guy, these punks, and really getting at them and stopping just before he kills them. And then you have the bad guy, trying to persuade, Damian to go that extra step. And I like this battle we're going to see, Batman and this guy Morgan over Damian. It looks like that's what's going to happen. And it's an interesting story. I like the action in this, and I'm really curious to see how this continues and goes on. And I'm really curious to see the more interaction, and more backstory between Bruce and this guy Morgan. It's a cool story, and I'm looking forward to it. So that's that. The last book I want to talk about, which is not part of the New 52, is Batman, the Brave and the Bold #13. Now, this is called Calling All Robins. This is a story, if anyone likes Robin in any way, shape, or form, it's a great, great story. It's about Batman being in real mortal danger, and you have the Phantom Stranger taking Robins from time to team them up together. And so you have Dick Grayson as Nightwing, and you have Jason Todd in the original Robin costume. You have Tim Drake in his original Robin costume. You have Damian in his costume. And not to mention, you have Stephanie Brown and you have Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns. And they're all teaming together to save Batman from dying. And it's a really cool story. It's a one-and-done story. It's short. And I really liked it. I mean, it has that, Batman Brave and the Bold, feel to it. The art's really cool. I love seeing all the Robins together. And if you like Robin, in any, in any internet, version of it, whether it's Stephanie Brown or it was, Tim Drake or Damien. This is really a good book. It's a fun book, something that you can show anyone. It's a lot of fun. So that's about it. Love the show as always. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
It's I'm going to start with Batman Brave and the Bold. Are you reading all new Batman Brave and the Bold?
No, I'm not reading that one.
Have you been watching the cartoons still, or are you kind of casual?
I catch the cartoons periodically.
See, to me, I think DC's cartoon, it's actually just ended. The series just ended. The last one was last week. They aired the series finale of all new Batman Brave and the Bold. And I really am going to miss that series because he's right. There's an accessibility to that series. It's really great. Like, that's something I would not hesitate to hand a new reader. And, just say, hey, check out this cartoon, check out this. I think it's a great jumping on point to DC in general. It's fun, it's interesting, it's entertaining. And I'm glad to see, I thought the Green Lantern cartoon when it was on, because you saw that at Chicago, right? Or New York, I'm sorry.
In New York. I saw that at New York, yeah.
Yeah, the two-parter of that Green Lantern series. And I'm really having a lot of faith in DC with the animation. Young Justice is terrific. I think the comic book for Young Justice matches the TV series. This all-new Batman Brave and the Bold, he's right. It totally matches. That Robin issue was terrific. I'm reading it because I'm digging these animated books to him. I like the all-ages stuff. For me, I read the single issues, but then I get the trades for my classroom. But I am reading them for me. All ages, really, these books, I can't recommend them enough, and I'm glad Jamie brought this up. These titles that they're publishing for, it's not Johnny DC now. It's DC Kids, I think they call it now. But I'm always worried about that label because I think, I like all ages, and I wish there was a way to put a proper label on all ages that would really draw in the regular comic readers. Because these are fun titles that are being put together by top-notch creative teams that I just really am enjoying. And these cartoon tie-ins, Young Justice, I think, is every bit as good as the cartoon and expands on it in such an amazing level. So if you're taking any of these DC animated releases, do yourself a favor and pick up the comics that are tied in because it really is like getting new episodes of those shows. And they get to do some things that they can't necessarily do in the time frame of that episode, like the All Robins thing. I thought was terrific, and I don't know that you could get away with that on TV. Because you don't want to confuse the audience. Although I don't know, they've never hesitated to pull in anybody on that cartoon. It's been great. Will you like the episodes that you saw of it? I know that.
Oh yeah. It's when I'm not. The reason I'm not watching it has nothing to do with quality. It solely has to do with I have so many different TV shows that I am watching right now that I was filling up my DVR. With shows, and trying to get caught up. And finally I was like, okay, I just got to, and I had to go through and do some massive just cleaning house. And one of the things that ended up getting on the chopping block was Batman Brave and the Bold. And Young Justice actually also got put on the chopping block. And it was just, I was like, I got to do this. I needed to make some cuts, needed to make, some cleaning up, and just because there's so much going on for me that I'm like, and every time I watch it, I enjoy it. And part of the reason I did kind of cut it was because it is so accessible. I know I could just, if I'm channel surfing and there's an episode on, I can watch it. Or if I know, hey, in an hour or so, there's going to be another one, I'll watch that one. And I could always just jump into it. And there's some shows where you can't miss an episode, and those are the ones that I'm making room for and making time for, the ones where you really just got to do a commitment to. So it's weird because I enjoyed it and I had fun with it, and it was that palate cleanser type of that I talk about, but I needed to make room for other stuff.
I need that accessibility. I need those titles every so often. They're just kind of a fun read. It's a self-contained book. Each issue of that Batman Brave and the Bold is very self-contained, like the cartoon. And I like that. It's kind of a fun, different book. For me, I'm not going to... part of me reads them because of the fact that I'm checking them out for my classroom. But I'm going to be 100%. Majority of me is reading it because I just really dig the book. That's really the reason why I'm reading it. I think there's something there. I get the benefit of being able to, because I can't do that with the main DC line. A lot of the comics in the main DC line are just, my kids are third graders. They're a little too young for the material. But these are books that they can read and they can enjoy. And I like putting in my room, seeing the kids beat them up. And I love the fact that we can have discussions about them because I'm reading them too. There's something fun for me. It's fun for adults and kids in that aspect. I really enjoy like sitting around lunch talking about like Tiny Titans, Young Justice, Brave and the Bold, stuff like that. I do this. I get the Marvel Adventures books too, which it's the same thing. These are very accessible books. They're fun reads. I'm not just reading them because my students can enjoy them. That's not it. That's a bonus to an already quality title in all those cases, and it's great to have those kind of comics available out there. It's just something a little different.
Now, just for the record, you will get Tiny Titans from me when you pry it from my cold, dead hand.
Right.
I am not giving up Tiny Titans for anything. That's a title that I sit there and I look forward to, and I read it and I laugh. And when I'm having a bad day at work, I come home and I read Tiny Titans and I laugh. So that's a title that I will never give up.
Did you read that recent Batgirls issue where everyone was dressed up like Batgirl?
Yeah.
It was terrific. I love Tiny Titans.
It's little stuff that, and I find myself doing the little mazes when they have the little maze that you draw on. Right. I'm sitting there, I'm tracing. Of course, I'm not actually using a pen because I can't write in a comic book. Heaven forbids that I would do that, but I am following it around.
I like that they put in drawings from kids in there too. It's kind of fun to see that too. It's different. It's something a little edge to it. When he's talking about Batman and Robin #3, that's a book that I really love. Damian just being a little bit younger, this being a little bit early in his experience with Bruce, and Bruce dealing with the fact that, okay, this kid was raised a certain way, and Bruce realizing what happens if something happens to me, to Damian. And Alfred, I love Alfred having to do things like when Bruce, Bruce right now is dealing with a threat of an assassin or, a combatant that, well, I guess an assassin's the best way to put it, who is in Gotham and really trying to, overtake Bruce. And Bruce not wanting Damian involved in this one because this guy's a bad influence on Damian. I liked how Alfred put like one tracker on Damian, but then when Damian wasn't in both cases, it looked like he was trying to hide it, and I loved seeing that Alfred did it twice to him.
Yeah.
So that way Damian would catch the one, but Alfred would get him on the other one. That was terrific. It's just such a great thing. But I also loved when we see things like Damian killing the bat and doing it without thinking. Mm-hmm. That's in his nature too. Can nurture change his nature? Or is it, and what part, how much of that is nurture and how much, his original nurture and how much of that is his nature? I want to know with Damian. He's intriguing.
Yes. Yeah, he's a definite interesting and he's one of those characters that when they were doing the relaunch, I was worried about. I didn't want to lose, any of the smarminess, any of the style to him, but any of that growth that we've seen, and we haven't. It's just continuations, and I'm really enjoying that title. I'm enjoying him as much as, and it's hard for me to say that I'm enjoying somebody else's Robin because I was such a Tim Drake fan that, I'm like, I don't want anybody else to be Robin. Tim is Robin. Well, now I'm like, you know what? I like Damian Robin. This is something I never thought I would say, that I'm enjoying somebody else in the role of Robin.
One of the things I really love is, in my history with growing up reading Batman, with Dick Grayson's Robin, the falling out that Dick and Bruce often had was due to the fact that Bruce did not know how to be encouraging. Bruce did not know how to tell Damian, Dick Grayson, I almost said Damian again, but Dick Grayson, hey, good job, hey, you're my partner, how, to be, to give him that kind of level. It was always very cold, very distant, not knowing how to be, and I think it's a lot of that's due to the fact that his parents died when he was so young. Bruce did not know how to be that kind of loving person. He knew how to distance himself from everybody, and that was survival tactic for him. I love that. I love that was something that came in so strongly in the series. I think that's something that's been interesting in this series, that Bruce has to come past that. He has to, start vocalizing to Damian in a way that he doesn't know how to do, and Alfred's calling him on it. And that's something that I find Alfred interesting in this, I find Bruce interesting in this, and I find Damian, because it's a totally different type of situation for all of those characters. I find that incredibly fascinating. So it's a great book, Batman
yeah.
and Robin. I have such a... It's funny, I picked Batman, the Scott Snyder Batman, as being my favorite Batman book, and I still stand by that, but boy, it's so hard to say that when you've got titles like Batman and Robin out there. I think Batman the Dark Knight has really stepped up its game. I think Detective Comics is fantastic. It's a great time to be a Batman fan, and I honestly have no issue of anybody calling up and saying, hey, Batman and Robin's my favorite title. Hey, this is my favorite title. Because honestly, as a Batman fan, I'm getting every single time there's a new Batman title released. And this includes the satellite titles like Batwing and stuff like that. I'm just so satisfied with the Bat universe. If I had to cut down to just Batman books right now, I'd be happy. It's... And on the same end of it, there's a lot of titles on the other end that I would be very happy cutting down to if I needed to. I would have a tough time cutting down because I would, to finding a balanced reading library right now, if I had to cut down, I would have a tough time doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's a sign of just really well-produced comic titles. There's a little something out there for everybody. Good stuff.
Hey, it's Eli in New York. Hello, Sean and Jim. Want to talk about a comic that's out, just came out. It may get lost in all the new 52 hoopla. It's being re-released under the DC Comics Presents label. It's Superman Secret Identity by Kurt Busiek and art by Stuart Immonen. It tells the story of a kid named Clark Kent who grew up being named after the comic book character, and then one day realized he had superpowers. Busiek actually based this character on the Earth Prime Superboy, but he decided to take it in a little different direction. It's a really great story. It came out in 2004 as a 4-part mini, and then had a trade paperback release, I guess not that long after. And that trade paperback has now it's out of print. And now they're re-releasing it as a 2-parts DC Comics Presents 100-page spectacular. The part 1 came out in mid-October, and I think part 2 is coming out later this month in November. It's really great. It starts with Superman, Clark Kent, telling his story as this kid who lives in Kansas, Pickettsville, Kansas, I think it's the city, and his parents named him Clark, kind of as a joke, and he had to grow up with all the Superman jokes, and he hated it. And then one day as a boy, he went camping on his own, and he woke up 50 feet in the air, and he can fly, and he had all these powers. Part 1 was him as a boy. Part 2 was him as an adult and a writer at the New Yorker. He lives in New York City, and he meets Lois, not Lois Lane, Lois Chardray, I believe is the woman's name, an Indian woman named Lois. They set him up as a joke, but they fall in love. He eventually tells her his secret. Part 3, they are married and have young children. And part 4, he's an old man with his 2 superpowered children flying around the earth, being super himself. Jim, you had mentioned that you had wanted to see a Superman story or a superhero story that takes someone from the beginning to the end, and this does it in 4 really wonderfully told parts. And then there's a part where the government kidnaps him, and Superman gets out, and he has to stay undercover. And the reason why he decides to wear a Superman outfit, the cape, the red and blue, because he figures that if people saw him saving the day, they would tell people it was Superman that saved them, and then everyone would think he was crazy. So that's how he kept his identity, by taking on the identity of Superman, which was a comic book character. Anyway, so just in case it doesn't get, I would not like this to get lost in the DC hoopla. It's an old story, about 10 years old, almost 10 years old. Secret Identity, Kurt Busiek. It's out under DC Comics Presents. Part 2 will be coming out in November. All right, thanks. Bye.
I actually really love when people call up and shout out something, because we can't get to everything on the show. Not with the nature of how we do the podcast. we can't get to everything. So it really is terrific when you're motivated and driven to call into the show and say, hey, really like this. I want to make sure other people are aware of it. Please feel free to do that at any point in time. It's one of the reasons why I like listener voicemails. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this episode. We want to catch up on listener voicemails. We got a little bit behind on them. And I really feel that, our podcast is community-based. That's one of the reasons why I really love splitting up segments with these type of voicemails, is to get this kind of thing out there. And this is a great book like that. Have you read, I don't know, is this one that you've gotten in your time in your stockpile of books? Because if not, I've got that, and I would love to let you borrow it because it's absolutely terrific.
I'm looking through my listing right now of what I've purchased, and that's one I didn't get. So I'm going to keep my eye out for it, and when it comes, I'll probably pick it up.
I have.
It sounds like it's right up my alley.
It's absolutely terrific. I totally agree with everything. I got it the first time through when it came out, and it's a very different take on the Superman story. Yet, there's enough of that Superman element that's there, but it's so real world based that it's a nice little twist, and I agree with him. It's one of those books that I can't recommend highly enough. It's a perfect book to read right now because you're not gonna, if you're reading Action Comics and Superman right now and Supergirl and Superboy, this is something that's in a totally different wheelhouse. So it's not going to get in the way of any of that reading. It's not going to be confusing to any of it because it is really a very different style. It's cool. It's very cool, and it's something I recommend to them too. I like that. Please feel free, anybody, to call in and call for that type of thing, because I love when people kind of catch something that we miss. I'm not picking up a lot of those DC Comics Presents because a lot of the stuff that they're releasing from that are things that I've read before. And I have the single issues, but I love that line because they're releasing things that, it gives people a chance to get them in an affordable way, where they don't necessarily be always buying trade paperbacks or something. They can buy them monthly and spread it out a little bit and read it in more of a serialized fashion. So I'm glad to hear, one of our listeners shout out that, hey, I'm picking this up and it's really cool, and I want to make sure that people do end up grabbing it and enjoying it. So that's one. Yeah, are you going to – so here's my question then, I guess, with what Eli said. Seeing as the trade's out of print, will you seek out the DC Comics Presents version? Will you borrow it from me, or is this something where you need to have your own?
I'm thinking, from what it sounds like, I'm probably going to want this on my own, so I'm going to seek out the DC Comics Presents, because I've been picking up a lot of those stories, and I'm enjoying those. I just, for whatever reason, when this one came out, I didn't pick it up. It could be because I was ordering other stuff, and I've kind of tailored back some of those that I'm not getting every single one just because of economical. I'm getting the entire new line, plus I'm getting some non-DC stuff, and I'm getting some, others, so a couple other, DC things that are not the new 52. So I got a lot of stuff I'm getting, so I've kind of tailored back a little bit on the DC Comics Presents, and I'm kind of mad I missed this one. So I'll hunt it down. I'll find it, but I'll definitely get the DC Comics Presents line.
I actually like, though, there's more product than I can get. I can't buy everything that DC publishes. It's just one of those things. And the reason, let me explain why I like that. I like in the previews catalog. I can open the previews catalog. There's a ton of comics I can't get. I always want there to be a ton of comic book variety. And there's certain titles that we, just can't get. You just can't there's certain books from DC Comics Presents that I haven't read that I would love to pick up, and I just can't because of money wise. It's just one of those things where there has to be a stopping point. I'm picking up all the new 52. Thank goodness for the 50% off from our sponsor.
Yeah. Oh, yes, thank you.
Well, that does make a difference as far as, buying, for example, Batman Noel. Why was I able to purchase that? Because of the 50% off. Now, when that changes, because of minis that I'm picking up and stuff like that, that's going to make me have to pick and choose between hardcovers and stuff. Original hardcovers I'm talking about. But I like, where this is, my budget-wise, I've had to stop things like, I was getting every Absolute. I'm not anymore. I'm picking and choosing on those, just because budget-wise I have to. I can't afford to get all those things. I would love to get the 2 Flash omnibuses that are out. I didn't end up grabbing those because I have the issues. You know, and it's kind of like I'm starting to watch myself on things where I'm rebuying and just kind of watching those because I want the new material. So that tends to be how I prioritize new material, especially in like a current universe. So that's kind of one of the ways I prioritize. But these DC Comics presents, like, if I didn't have that secret, just based on his telling of that, if I hadn't read it and I didn't have the issues, I would so
You'd be jumping on that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, Don Sanderson again. Just calling because happened to watch the new Green Lantern animated series last night and thought it was absolutely breathtaking. It was like watching Green Lantern in the Incredibles universe. Really cool animation, killer story. It was a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. I'm listening to your review on the Red Lanterns right now. So we'll chat to you later. Take care.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about that animated series other than what we've already said before. That's terrific. I'm excited for this new, because we did talk about that. Have you seen the trailer for what the DC Afternoon is going to look like in 2012, or that DC block of cartoons is going to look like?
No, I haven't seen the trailer for that.
It's really cool. It's on our website. There's actually a link to it on our website. And on the trailer, because it's on the source blog, and on the trailer, there's this cool thing. It's not just going to be the cartoons. It's going to be the comics, too. You know, like all DC. You know, I'm guessing movies, cartoons, behind the scenes. You know, it looks like there's going to be a brand new Batman cartoon, which I know they announced. But, I mean, on the trailer, there's actually, I think, the first images of the new Batman cartoon, which look really cool. We got Young Justice, we got Green Lantern, but that's, it's not going to be it. There's going to be more down the road the more successful this is. So I'm excited for that. I mean, that's really kind of fun. But there's also going to be animated shorts. Some of them are humorous and fun. Other ones are going to be, I'm guessing, like characters that maybe they aren't going to have in full series. Like the stuff we're seeing in some of the original releases. Nice. So I'm excited for that. I mean, I think this DC block on Cartoon Network is going to be absolutely terrific. So I'm the more the merrier as far as animation of this, because I think the animation quality has been terrific. Now, let me ask you this. When they start that in 2012, are you going to be a casual viewer, or do you see yourself wanting to be a regular viewer? How are you going to handle that?
I don't know, man. You know what? I really, really enjoyed the Green Lantern when I saw it in New York. I was like, because it was funny. As I was getting rid of other stuff, I was like, man, I gotta watch Green Lantern. I gotta see this. And so I'm gonna initially start off as a hardcore watcher, and it's in the rotation of recording and watching, and we'll see as time goes on. I don't see myself dropping it because, just from that one episode, I was like, dang, there's so much that they could do with this. And they just had I like the serialized story of it. I like the fact that it's going to be building one story after another. And part of the reason I was able to get rid of the other stuff, well, Young Justice is a serialized story, but like the Batman Brave and the Bold, I was able to get rid of that because it wasn't a build on. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but right now I'm leaning towards I'll be watching it regularly.
Cool. Yeah, I'm anxious as when that actually hits to see what route you do wind up going, because I think that'll be fun.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Jim, this is a book I've been dying to talk about. It's DC Universe Presents issue number 3. This one is a story arc featuring Deadman. Paul Jenkins is the writer, Bernard Chang artist, Blonde colorist, Dave Sharp letterer, Ryan Sook is the cover artist, Will Moss is the editor, Deadman created by Arnold Drake. This series has been one I was really looking forward to because it's an anthology series. It's really a great chance for them to take, 5, 6 issue story arcs, whatever fits for the characters. I know the one after this is going to be Challengers of the Unknown, and really spotlight characters from DC that they haven't been able to launch into series in a while. Now, Deadman's terrific because he's in Justice League Dark right now. We've seen him in Brightest Day recently. This is a character who's really been in the forefront, in the spotlight in the DC Universe. So it's great to see him here and to have an opportunity to read this character and to see him kind of exploring what is it that's actually really going on with me? What is this curse, if you will, that I'm going through? And is there an end game to it? And is there a positive end game for me? Because it's looking like there might not be.
Yeah, we talk about how the difficulties of being a superhero, and Deadman really has, the raw deal, where, it's the jumping from the body to body. Yeah, he gets to do some good, but he's, Batman has his Bruce Wayne persona. Nightwing can become Dick Grayson. Deadman is always Deadman. There is no turning off. There is no escape. There is no vacation from it. It's just constant going on, and there's even so many mysteries in the unknown that he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen. He doesn't know, will I get out of this? Will I be able to get my reward? Will I be able to get free of this, or is this, an eternal fate? And it's a very realistic reaction to what he's going through. He does want to help people, but you know what? There's helping people, and there's, a lifetime of servitude, and he's like, I don't know if I want that.
It's interesting with the selfishness that he's facing in his previous life. He's devoted himself to being something else and in giving to all these other people because you thought, like, hey, this will be it. This will be eventually I will get a payoff for this. I'll eventually become something more because of it. And to find out that it is that joke, that isn't what's going to happen, he doesn't know who to trust anymore. Ramakrishna has been like who, he's looked at as being like his salvation and all this. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case. This librarian seems to be also alluding to that, and that there's a secret in his own book. His own book has got tons of secrets as far as the direction he's been and where he's going to be headed, and how dark that is not only for him, but for any of those that are connected to him and how they're going to be saved. I loved his infiltration of this facility to get to her. I loved how he had to manipulate the situation in order to get what he wanted out of her. And I don't know, there's something, I like seeing how he behaves a little bit differently when he's corporeal, where he can be touched. or he also has the ability to touch without using other people's bodies. There's something really cool about this whole thing that I'm really liking.
Yeah, and it was funny because the books of the universe, the books of his life, I love the fact that they're not only are they Braille, but they're Braille Aramaic. So it's really a hard thing. You can't just pick it up and read it. And that's kind of, I'm glad to see there's some type of, defenses on top of just getting there. You get there, it's not just going to be that easy.
Well, you know what? It isn't necessarily the fact that was even done for defensive purposes. Look how old this place would be. So the kind of language they use to chronicle this would be a language that's lost to time. That was something that I really enjoyed, which is a neat twist, too. I agree with you that it serves as a defensive purpose, but I love that there was something that felt natural about that, too, where you're like, oh, wait a minute. I get that because, yeah, it would be something that would have been around forever as well, and why would it be in English? We always have the kind of that weird American ego thing that, like, our language is kind of universally known and everything like that, and everything just is in English. And I really love it when, you get smacked in a story and reminded that, no, like, English came much later. I like that. I think that's true. And it added to me a sense of depth to the story that I wasn't expecting. I like that. I like that kind of, it reminds me of like your Da Vinci codes and those type of things where it adds little bits of that element into this story. It's very fitting for something as spiritual as Deadman is.
Yeah, and, just the one you're dealing with, the living specter, the living ghost, the supernatural angle, but I do like the fact that they're pulling the religion side into it, and they're pulling in, it's not just the Ramakrishna, it's the regular, everyday, we're dealing with the morning sun. We're dealing with the son of the morning. We're dealing with Lucifer. We're dealing with these other religious aspects that they're pulling into this as well. And it's a difficult way to tread because you're talking about a current and active and open religion, and you don't want to be disrespectful to people. You don't want to, kind of tweak, you want to tweak the story and be able to make it your own, but you got to be careful where you go with it. And I'm so far liking their explanation and their exploration of these different characters.
What religion are they identifying, though?
That's the thing. They're not specifically saying Christianity, but they are following with the Lucifer and the being cast out from heaven, but then they're introducing this whole son of the morning, who is the first angel to choose to leave. He wasn't a fallen angel. He wasn't kicked out. He chose to leave.
Right.
He followed Lucifer, and I thought that was a really cool, kind of twist and tweak to it, where they're manipulating it. Because in the, my studies and whatnot never had where there was an angel who chose to fall. And I thought that was a kind of a cool that they're adding this part to it.
Do you consider that falling, choosing to leave? The son of morning chose to leave, so does that make him a fallen angel? Or
Well, I'm assuming that would make him a fallen angel because he's not following the path of God.
I guess so, yeah. I don't know how that works. I think that's going to be kind of, I guess that's one of the things I want to know more about Son of Morning. What is Son of Morning? What does this mean for him? Because he doesn't look very fallen to me when we see him.
Well, I don't know. He's kind of got some classic images there. If when you're dealing with somebody who's their price is souls, that's usually not a good thing.
Right. Now, what's happening to the librarian gradually as this is progressing? Like, because he's pulling out, because her face is actually decomposing. Her wings are falling apart. What is causing that? Is that because of what he's doing? Is it because she's talking? Has her saying what she has said, or is this her falling in her own way?
Well, she was already a fallen angel, is my understanding. Where she was at, and I think it's by her giving up the knowledge that she has and giving up this stuff, she's giving up her power. So this is her breaking apart and her slowly dying.
Wow. I want to see what ends up happening with her. I want to see what she looks like because she's got to come back, right?
Yeah, I can't believe that's the end of her story and end of her existence.
Johnny, when he meets this Johnny guy, he'd possessed somebody else. It was really interesting to see how Deadman starts to connect with this guy, his life, who he is, and starts to feel bad about it. He's trying to help him out because he was part of the explosion, these terrorist explosions, and that's what happened to his legs, right? Am I reading that right? These things that are going on in Gotham, this cult?
Well, with Johnny, it was an IED that got him.
Oh, okay.
He was a soldier, and it was just IED left in the road, boom, got him.
That's right.
He's sitting there telling the girl the story about some of their adventures, and like, that didn't get us. It was just an IED, which, to be honest, is one of the difficulties that a lot of the soldiers deal with. The fact that it just happens. It's not like you're in this huge, big, blazing gunfight, and you run across an open, like you see in the movies, and no, they're just rolling down the road. Bam! Next thing you know, you're hit, and that's a huge psychological factor, and that's usually something difficult for these guys to talk about and to relate to, and and explain it, and because people will say, "Oh, you're just riding down the car, that's it," well, yeah, that's not just it. He's in the middle of a war zone. Just rolling down the street is dangerous, but sometimes people have you can't connect to it and you can't understand it, and so that was something I really like seeing, and it's not played out heavy in the story, but it is, we're starting to understand some of the stuff that he's going through. It's not just, you look at him, you think, okay, he's depressed because he lost his legs. No, it's not just the legs. It's everything that happened before that, what led up to it, afterwards now, how he's, dealing with it, and is he actually dealing with the true problems and the true pain? And I like seeing glimpses and pieces of him.
I guess why I was connected to that group, I'm trying to figure out how is he helping Johnny? Because he seemed to say bingo when he was watching that League of the Anarchy, but maybe, I'm just reading too much into that. I'm totally, you're right on his story, because I just went back and looked at it when we were going through. I guess I'm focused on trying to figure out, because he's torn over helping Johnny, because he says, the problem is if I help him, he and I will stay connected, and I won't have helped him at all, not really. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, what does he mean? How is he helping Johnny? Is it helping him cope with his life, helping him get the girl? What is he trying to do to help Johnny? How is he helping Johnny? Or what is on the table to help Johnny? Because I don't see the connection, other than he's possessed Johnny.
Yeah, I don't get, on one hand, him helping Johnny get out and become more open and discussing and just live a life, and helping him through that stuff is helping him more. But when we added this whole League of Anarchy, I was like, how is this? This can't be connected to Johnny. It's got to be connected to something else.
Well, here's my problem with that, though. Johnny was already speaking about his life.
Yeah.
When he was talking to the girl before Deadman possessed him, he was already telling her. Is he lying? Is Johnny lying about what happened to him?
You know what? That could be. Maybe that is. I wonder now. I'm wondering now. Maybe Johnny isn't the disabled vet that he's claiming to be.
A homegrown terrorist organization known as the League of Anarchy. This group has claimed responsibility for explosions. It's just more attacks. I don't know. So I guess I'm curious over time to see what he's doing for Johnny. I think it's part of the mystery we're all trying to unfold.
Well, yeah, it's because on one hand, the whole time I was thinking it was he's trying to help the guy come out of his shadow, but maybe it isn't coming out of his shell. Maybe Johnny is actually not who we think he is, and Deadman knows that because he's inside him. Because then he talks about that other guy, that Larry Clock,
right?
That he was there, and basically he got Larry to go through his execution. Larry came to grips with it, but there's still that connection to Larry.
Right,
so
absolutely.
If,
It's interesting how long Deadman stayed with him, because looking to see if somebody would come, that was funny. I guess, who was he thinking was going to come? Was that somebody to save him?
Maybe waiting for a last-minute reprieve from the governor and all that, and physically save Larry's life. But Larry didn't, get saved. Larry died.
Right.
So, yeah.
So was he was there trying to keep Larry alive as long as possible to hopefully survive being killed, right? Was his goal was there? What a horrible existence.
Yeah. It is part of the pain that he goes through, and it's one of the, it's kind of tough to figure out, and it's, again, when he's going through this whole process, he's in control of Larry, and Larry, came to the grips with it, but, not to actually physically go through the execution. There is, in a way, I'd say there would be closure as you're going in and getting strapped in and ending it, but in a way it is also kind of a peaceful for Larry if he didn't have to actually walk.
Now, here's my question. You're Deadman. You've gone on mysteries with heroes. You've solved adventures with heroes. And that's all gone, many times very, very well, where those, you've been an important factor. But then we see now these horrible other things that happen where things fail and they don't work out, or, and finding out now that everything that he thought was true, that this was for some sort of salvation, some sort of redeeming himself for his past mistakes, to find out now that that's not true and that's not going to happen for him. Wow. And how effective would that make you in helping other people?
Yeah, it's part of the darkness that's going to, pieces of these people that are sticking. It kind of reminded me of Ragman with his Suit of Souls and how he has that going on. It's Deadman's kind of following suit where he's still going to have pieces of these people in him, and maybe parts of those experiences will, he'll be able to tap into it somehow.
This series is really interesting because, this is still a good guy. He's prided himself on being a hero. He's been a part. He's dating Dawn Granger. Well, at least we think he's still dating Dawn Granger. I don't know. Current status of that's up in the air as of issue 3. But this is a guy who, throughout his history in the DC universe, has basically tried to stay the straight and narrow, tried to be helpful in situations. Even in this gang situation, he manipulates them to fight each other, to make a big deal go sour, and to put the stop of a big, situation from happening. And I really liked that. I liked seeing how this all played out. It was a good use of jumping from body to body and basically getting away with, with the goods, so to speak, making them all wonder what just happened around them.
And it was a beautiful plan. And it was the same way how we got into the library, where he was jumping from body to body, improvising and, dealing with that. And then just with this, going back and forth, getting the two sides fighting each other. That was really cool. Now, my question is, that's phase 1. What's phase 2? What's he do? Why is he doing this?
I don't know. Well, this is that group, right? The Anarchy group?
Yeah, this is the Anarchy group.
So phase 1 is to, I don't know.
He stole the weapons, ammunitions from the Anarchy group, and what's he going to do with it? I don't know.
Well, he's got a number of things going. Talk about this guy's like the ultimate multitasker, because he's setting up these two groups. See, this is what's leading me to believe there's got to be a Johnny connection to this group. He's jumping right back to Johnny after this. So what is Johnny's connection to the group? What don't I know?
I don't know. He's like, if I got to solve Johnny's problem, I got to solve this first. And so he's backing Johnny to deal with the other problem with Rama and going and talking to Son of the Morning. But yeah, I'm now thinking that Johnny was connected with that group, and Johnny wasn't the disabled vet that he was claiming to be. He was just doing it to, maybe pick up an attractive woman.
Son of Morning now he's interesting to me because, like I could see him being a fallen. Well, obviously he's in the Devil's Dive. I don't think that's an accident. I don't know. I want to see what his whole MO is, and is he on the side of, literal quote unquote, for lack of a better word, the side of angels, or is he on the side of the devil? I don't know.
Yeah, they talked about that earlier. Like, some people will see him as evil, others will see him as a champion of humanity. There is that dual nature and just that unknown factor. He is you consider him against God, which would say, okay, that means he's got to be evil. But then people say, hey, maybe not. Maybe he's a humanist. Maybe he's pro mankind, and to do that, you got to be against the Almighty to do that. And it could all be, just, smoke and mirrors, song and dance, and a great way to get someone to, to trust them, saying, hey, I'm not evil, really. Just ignore the pitchfork and the horns. Really, I'm a nice guy. I'm your pal.
I like this story because it's taking Deadman, and it's not throwing anything out the window, but it's showing us that maybe what we thought we knew about Ramakrishna, what Deadman thought he knew, might not be true. And Deadman's going to have to find out in the end what is true and what isn't, and is there a way to redeem himself? Because imagine being trapped in this curse where you're not only now trapping yourself, but you've also now trapped everybody you've come in contact with. The people you thought you were saving, you were actually damning, which is really what he's faced with. The responsibility of that, it's how do you feel about yourself after that end of things? I love this. That's a part of this that really has struck me as being a cool story element.
Yeah, next story. Sympathy for the carny.
Yeah.
Now I can get out of here.
Hey guys, this is Julian Poole, and I've been really enjoying your podcast lately. I'm a new listener, and I've been collecting comics, and it's a very new experience for me. I've never really been much of a comic book collector until a couple of years ago. I started collecting the Walking Dead series, and occasionally collecting a few series here and there, but never really got into it much until the 52 series came out. Really been enjoying the book so far. I've been collecting a number of series so far. And I love each of these series. I've been serious about collecting like Animal Man, Hawkman, Swamp Thing, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, even Aquaman. And I never really considered myself an Aquaman fan at all. And until I read that, I just loved the meta commentary on that and how pretty much the creators say in that a lot of people don't love Aquaman because they think he's a lame superhero. We're going to show everyone that he's not a lame superhero, and he's just very awesome. I just love that, and I love each of the characters. I just was able to grow attached to him in many ways that other favorite superheroes that I've grew up with all my life, like Batman, who I grew up with the animated series, and Superman, I was able to grow up more attached to Aquaman. Not that I don't love those guys or feel attached to them any less. I just grown to appreciate that Aquaman just much more. I've been trying out different series from different franchises, like a little bit from each, like a little bit of the Lantern books. So far I've been trying out Green Lantern Corps and Rand Lanterns. Love those books. One thing I tried out fairly new is I Vampire. I didn't think I'd like that because, for one, the cover just kind of turned me off a little bit. They kind of looked like Barbie dolls, which, although I thought the concept sounded cool, that cover kind of turned me off, and sometimes that does pay off. But I gave it a chance after seeing many good reviews on it, and I checked out previews, so I decided to go ahead and give it a shot, and I got both the number 1 and number 2 issue. When I even asked the clerk at the comic book shop, is this any? He said, I like where it's going so far, but it's a little too soon to tell. Gave it once I started reading it, I absolutely loved this series because of how they portray vampires in that and how just genuinely terrifying the monsters that are portrayed in there. And the artwork is just magnificent, but it would only really work if for a vampire comic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. At the same time, the artwork in a Flash comic would look ridiculous in a lot of other series. But I think Flash artwork is just amazing. I've really been enjoying iVampire, and I would, and this is sort of also a shout out to anyone who has heard of that series and has any doubts on that. Just give it a shot. It's something different, something new, just like a lot of the other series. And it's perfect opportunity to experience some new characters and some good quality vampire action. I also heard about you fighting off that bacteria, Sean, and I hope you feel better. And keep up the good work, guys. You got yourself a devoted listener here. I've just really been enjoying your positivity and just thanks to you and your recommendations and what you had to say for a lot of series, I've been enjoying a lot. So thanks, guys. If you feel better, Sean, and keep up the good work, guys.
That was really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I post stuff on the website every so often just to let people know, especially if we're delayed on an episode or something like that, what's going on. Because I really appreciate the time that people put into the show. The fact that you guys wait for the episodes and you actually listen to them. That's always, it really is what motivates us to do this. It's thrilling for me to see a newer reader. Obviously Walking Dead, he's read before, but it's great to hear him experiencing these new titles and unexpected titles that are grabbing him. We haven't talked to iVampire on the show. I'm anxious to talk about that one because, of your love for vampires. I'm surprised we haven't yet. That's one we'll definitely get in the road. We're going to talk about all the new 52. We haven't gotten to it yet, but we will. But I'm glad to hear him talk about that series. Can you give us, Jim, just kind of your initial impressions as a vampire fan on that series?
Eh.
Can you give us more than an No, I know you're kidding, but yeah.
This is one of those series. This is definitely one of those issues that when it came out, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this because I am a vampire fan, but I was like, is this in the DCU? Is this not? Shouldn't this be a Vertigo title? And I didn't know where it was fitting in, how it was going to groove. And that first issue, I completely echo and co-sign what he's saying about how the artwork just so fit a vampire story. It's one of those things where you get we've talked a lot of times about a meshing and a visual story matching up to what is actually being told, and just how our creative team is just firing on all cylinders, working together. iVampire is one of those series, and it's one of that. I was sitting, I was like, really, what's going on here? Then, as issue 1 came out, issue 2 read that, I was like, ooh, hold on, and as it's building, it's one of those things where by the end of the first story arc, I'm going to be absolutely psycho about it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving the story. I'm seeing, I'm thinking off page on it, going, okay, what about this? What about this? And there's the little things that I'm trying to figure out, trying to piece together in the universe. But as it's every issue is building, every issue is going somewhere, every issue is getting me pulled in more into the characters, into the main, into our two main vampires that we're dealing with, and just who they are, what they're about, and where they're going to go from here.
I'm reading right now American Vampire and American Vampire Survival of the Fittest, that miniseries when it was out. I'm also reading Buffy from Dark Horse, Season 9, and Angel and Faith, over there. So I'm reading a lot of vampire-related content in comics right now. I was really worried that, with iVampire, I was going to be comparing it to a lot of those series. I'm not. It, really has got its own flavor, and I agree with both of you on the artwork. I just think it's got, a really... And not even just that it's great artwork for a vampire series, but that it's unique artwork for vampire series compared to the other series that I'm already reading. Mm-hmm. It's got its own thing going on, and it's definitely fresh. And for anybody that's looking for a different sort of title, it's a great book to jump onto, because even if you're reading other vampire-related titles, this is a very unique piece. Just as unique, you know what? It's funny. How many superhero books am I reading? And it's funny, I'm saying, well, I was leery at first because I'm like, another vampire book, and then I'm kind of like, well, that's really ridiculous because I'm reading like 7 billion superhero titles. So it's great to see that same kind of diversity in vampire storytelling. And it works. It's a great book. These are characters that are very new to me. I've never read I, Vampire before this series at all. This isn't even one where I can say, like, I read an issue here or there or something. I have no exposure to the I, Vampire concept. I don't know how close this is to anything that was released in the past with the concept, but I really like it now. It's a cool book. It is another one of those with each issue, I'm getting more invested in it. A lot of what you're saying as well. But I like that out of the new 52, there's a lot of tried and true characters. Like Julian was just mentioning, the ones I grew up with, like your Batmans and stuff like that. But then there's other characters, Aquaman for me, I've mentioned on the show many a time my love for the Peter David run and just how much I've really dug the character since that run kind of opened my eyes to how cool Aquaman could be. So that's a series that, yes, home run right out of the starting gate. And I'm glad to see a new fan of Aquaman because of this new series, because it is so well written. But I, Vampire, I agree with them. That's another series where it's kind of like, okay, this is, it took me by surprise. Because that was one I did not know what I was going to feel about because I don't know the concept at all. And that's a successful one for me. So kind of cool.
Hi, this is Dean from Newark, California. I just wanted to give you some input regarding episode 283. The Green Lantern that lost his hand was Abin Sur in the 3-part miniseries from Flashpoint, and he put his green on his energy ring. He put his ring on his energy hand, not on his regular hand. I just wanted you to know that, and thanks for the great podcast.
Yeah, thanks for that call, Dean. It was one of those things where you'd made mention of it, I think, on our last episode. You made a comment about or a couple episodes ago, about the fact that you thought that constructs could work as a way of holding the ring in place. Is that what you were going for more so than the ring actually being activated by the construct?
Yeah. It's the energy is part of it's the construct is actually part of the Green Lantern, and it is kind of it's not just an outside force. It is part of them. It is their will that's creating it. So the character, just that strength of character and that that the power of their willpower can actually physically make that hand, which would allow the ring to remain on there. So it would be kind of a part of them. Now, I think they probably run into maybe a little bit of a problem later on if energy started leveling or if they weren't able to focus as well. But there still is that, the really cool lanterns can pull it off.
Well, I do see when you're saying the really cool lanterns, I think what we're talking about are veteran lanterns who have the experience. We've seen them, Hal's done it many times. Not just Hal, we've seen Guy do it, John do it. Kyle, I know, has done it during the time, where they can control the ring when it's not on them, not physically on them. There's a symbiotic relationship there between them, which I find very, very interesting. And when they do play off of that, we even saw it in the film with Hal, where we saw an opportunity for him to use the ring and control the ring when he wasn't actually wearing it. And I like that aspect of the relationship. It actually shows just what happens when the ring chooses someone. It actually makes a relationship. There's something that's built there between them. And I've always liked that. I mean, that's something that I feel like that ring... It isn't something that anyone should just be able to pick up and be able to put on and use. You have to be chosen. You have to be the one. You might be able to make use of it like we saw Ali do, where he put on the Hal's ring and was able to fire an arrow. But it's certainly not going to be easy for you to use it. And if the owner comes back home, you better believe it's coming right off your hand and back where it belongs. So that was kind of fun. Yeah, I guess I was so caught up on it having to touch the person. And I do think for some of the rookie ones, it would.
Yeah. Well, and they're not used to it. It's not a part of them. It's like some of the great swordsmen, of all time, whether you're dealing samurai, whether you're dealing with fencing, whether you're any swordplay discipline, it's not just a weapon. It's an extension of their arms, an extension of who they are. It's part of their body. And when you can see that in just this master at work, And it's the same thing with the ring. It's not just a piece of, metal on their hand. It is a part of them, and it is, who they are. And those are the ones who could be able to create the construct. Those are the ones who could be able to wear it on a construct hand, and actually function without any hesitation or any problem. So it's, something that, again, it's a level of comfort, experience, expertise with it that a rookie couldn't pull off, but we're not dealing with some rookies here. We're dealing with powerful people who they're experienced and they're comfortable with who they are.
I like when you add that romanticism to it. I liked your swordsman comment because it adds a romanticism to the whole thing that I think is critical. I agree with you 100%.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, remember to check out the Huntress number 4. Regularly $2.99, 40% off only $1.79. It's a 6-issue miniseries coming from DC. Thank you, DCBService.com, for supporting our show. Over at InStockTrades.com, DC Comics presents Life Story of the Flash number 1. $7.99 regularly, 42% off only $4.63. InStockTrades.com. Jim, next week we're going to continue taking a look at the DC New Universe. 4 more books that we haven't talked on yet, so we will see everyone next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Fated for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. Villains are closing in, be they Thanon Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, talking about Hawkman.